Chapter 31, Black Gold Gloves. Takashi Komuro and Kota Hirano had returned to the hall at some point in time and were prying open a cabinet. The sounds of the girls in the bathroom filled their faces with helplessness. They seemed to be very happy. Should we follow the routine and peep? Kota Hirano asked Takashi Komuro while observing the lockers. TSK. I don't want to die at a broken bar. It was as if he didn't care for Kota Hirano's suggestion, though. TSK, I didn't expect you to be so timid, Takashi. Think about those girls' youthful and energetic bodies and that teacher Marikawa's full figure. Wouldn't it be very exciting? Takashi Komuro naturally thought of Kurumi when listening to Kota Hirano's bewitching words. Then, he remembered the cold gaze imprinted into his mind. Kota, you should consider senior sister Tokisakis. Won't she break your legs and throw you out to feed those zombies? Kota Hirano thought about Takashi Komuro's words and envisioned what would happen. His fat body shivered. Haha, Takashi, you really know how to joke. Why would I even consider peeping at girls bathing? Then who knows? A broken bar. Alright, Takashi, get ready to push it. We'll use our strength as one. Takashi Komuro's head was covered in black lines. Hearing this, he wanted to punch the fat home. I say, Kota, did you not pass your language exams? What's wrong? Don't you think what you said just now was terrible? It made me want a broken bar. Kota Hirano raised his head to see Takashi Komuro's fierce expression. He quickly raised his fist and hurriedly said, Stop, stop, stop. Stop, Takashi, you need to calm down now. Let's break the lock first. Bang. The physical strength of the two boys had not reached their peaks yet, but they were still strong. With a bit of strength, they pried open the black cabinet. Ding, 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 ding. The cabinet shook a few times from their prying before bursting open, causing several bright yellow bullets to roll onto the ground. Kota Hirano's eyes shone as he carefully picked up the cute little bullets. Takashi Komuro looked into the cabinet but was immediately disappointed. Other than the boxes piled together, there was only a telescope inside. Not a single gun to be found. My god. Takashi Komuro, who was just about to leave, heard Kota Hirano's excited voice and looked over. Takashi, look. These boxes are full of bullets, and they are all unopened. The telescope is also a military-grade good, but without a gun, what's the use? Can you use just bullets to fight against zombies? No, no, no. The cabinet next to it has not been pried open yet. Come, Takashi, help me. Let us see what is here. Sire broken bar. Takashi Komuro sighed, walked back to the crowbar, and shoved it into the cabinet. If there are no guns inside, it'll go crazy. There must be. We have the ammunition, so we will definitely have guns. Hearing Kota Hirano's determined voice, Takashi Komuro did not say anything else. As for whether there were guns or not, let's pry it open and see. Let's go. The two of them grabbed the crowbar with both hands and leaned back. Simultaneously, they pulled at it. 1, 2, bang. Ouch. When the two of them reached 3, they exerted all their energy. They did not expect the cabinet to be pried open so easily. Because of inertia, their bodies fell forward, especially Kota Hirano. His fat body smashed onto the ground, almost fooling Takashi Komuro into thinking it was an earthquake. It hurts a broken bar. Takashi Komuro propped himself up with his hands and looked at the cabinet from the corner of his eyes. Huh? With a startled cry, cold sweat broke out on his back. He assumed that it would only have a couple of pistols, but it had turned out to be a motherload. Hey, Kota. He patted the fatty lying on the ground. The tremors from this guy's fall had still not subsided. With one look at the cabinet, a light flashed in Kota Hirano's eyes, and his fat body rushed up at an ungodly speed. I told you there'd be something here. I just didn't expect it to be this good. Takashi Komuro looked at Kota Hirano, who was grabbing with guns, and his head was sweaty. Kota, what do you think this friend of teacher Marikawa does? Doesn't she work at the airport? How did she get these things? Someone from a criminal organization? That shouldn't be the case. A broken bar working at the airport. A broken bar. Could she be someone from the military? Kota Hirano scratched his head. It should be about right. Otherwise, how could she have these things at home? A broken bar. Rika Minami, who was far away at the airport, sneezed. She was on a tall building with a sniper rifle in her hand, and the wind was quite strong. What's wrong? Did you catch a cold? A male colleague asked with concern. Maybe my friend talked about me. Who is it? I don't have many friends, so it should be Shizuka. I don't know how she is now. A broken bar. Rika touched her red nose with her hand. A broken bar. In the apartment, Miyamoto was groping Shizuka Marikawa's chest as tempting gasps constantly leaked from her mouth. Sire Takagi and Seko Buzujima were still playing with each other. It was not that they hadn't tried to play with Kurumi, but she had taught them all a lesson. Even now, a soft and elastic sensation and fragrance lingered on Kurumi's hands. In the end, it was really chaotic. She did not expect girls to play around more than boys. She could not help but escape earlier. As for what to wear, didn't Kurumi have a lot of clothes in her inventory? A broken bar. Wow. Although this gun is semi-automatic, the M14 series is a waste of bullets. Takashi Komuro looked at Kota Hirano, obsessing over the guns, and could not help but remind that a broken bar. Kota broken bar. Kota was completely immersed in his own world. He could not hear Takashi Komuro calling to him, Even from such a close distance, he continued to mutter to himself, "The magazine can hold more than 20 bullets. This is illegal in Japan. This is illegal." The last two words were weighty. It was as if he had been drugged. The light reflecting off his glasses nearly scared Takashi Komuro away. He could only constantly call him from behind. This version of Koto is far more terrifying than senior sister Tokisakis. Kurumi looked very youthful wearing a casual dress. She wore a pair of blue shorts and a grey coat with a brown bear printed in the middle. After changing her clothes, she went to the kitchen and poured a glass of water. As soon as he stepped into Rika's home, the main storyline mission had been updated, but Kurumi was not in a hurry to check it. Walking to the sofa in the living room, she kicked off her rabbit slippers and nestled into the sofa, her lazy body filling the seat. She summoned her status panel. The light blue radiance had not changed in the slightest. Her broken bar. Main mission. Arrive at Rika's home. Complete. Main mission. Cross the bridge and reach the other side. Reward, 100 reincarnation points. Failure, loss of all points. 100 points. A broken bar. What will happen? Kurumi was puzzled. Although her strength had improved a lot, she was still unsure. Was there going to be a mini-boss? Could it be Koichi Shido? While thinking about it, Kurumi opened the shopping mall. Looking around, she flipped to the vambrace section and then her meager 53 reincarnation points. Kurumi fell silent. Why was everything so expensive? She looked at the first couple of vambraces with their light effects and showy auras. Heavens, wouldn't she be beaten to death if she wore this in front of others? Silently, she scrolled to the bottom, and on the second last page, she found what she needed. Black gold gloves. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 32, No Peace Talks, No Surrender. Black gold gloves, weaved from gold silk from alpha, class golden silkworm and industrially refined second-grade black cotton. Price, 50 reincarnation points. Remark, a piece of equipment suitable for newbie combatants. Golden silkworm. Kurumi was quite familiar with this name. Its silk was suitable for various weapons, clothes, and its sale was extremely profitable. Two great reincarnator organizations had fought several wars over the world with golden silkworms, leading to the deaths of many high-level reincarnators. Although it was only alpha class silk, there was a market for it for any class of reincarnator. Newbies would buy it to produce equipment to increase their toughness. More experienced reincarnators liked to add 1 or 2 strands of gold silk threads while refining other things. As for those big shots, the clothes they usually wore were made from gold silk mixed with other high-grade materials. It wasn't hard to imagine the amount of profit. Although Lord God had some, reincarnator organizations sold it for 20% less, a significant margin. It should be noted that not everyone bought it from these organizations. Many agreed that the quality was much lower even if they were made from the same materials. Unsurprisingly, the black gold gloves Kurumi wanted to buy only had a small amount of this precious material, and it was embroidered onto it as a pale gold pattern. The golden silk thread should cost about 10 reincarnation points on the market. The second-grade black cotton would cost 10 reincarnation points for a piece that large, including the labor fee. It should only cost 40 reincarnation points. Yet Lord God charges me 50 reincarnation points. What a scammer. Kurumi sat on the sofa and muttered. She suddenly missed her days in Lord God's space. At least the price there was much lower. To be honest, even if you gave Kurumi the choice to go back, she might not be willing. With other reincarnators carrying out missions, not only did you have to compete over the main storyline while guarding against the story's characters, but you also had to be wary of the other reincarnator. No one knew how many trump cards the other side had, but it was inevitable for both sides to test each other. Most of the time, there would not be a battle, but both sides would feel like they've gone through some high level of mental torture since neither side dared to relax. Those who did would die early. Kurumi mumbled to herself, but she did not hesitate. Ding, are you sure you want to purchase a black gold gloves? This will cost 50 reincarnation points. Confirm. She glanced at the A balance at the bottom right corner of her eye. 3 points. A broken bar. It was almost like nothing happened, but there was now a pair of black gloves in Kurumi's inventory. She casually pulled it out. Its cool surface was very nice to touch. It was as thin as a cicada's wing and didn't inhibit her motions in the slightest. If not for the pitch black color, Kurumi would have thought she was not wearing it. She clenched her fists, and the pale gold thread on the gloves shone slightly under the light of the sun. Before Kurumi could test its effects, she heard a loud shout. A broken bar. Her gaze turned to Takashi Komuro. Kota Harino looked like a fanatic, which made Takashi Komuro, who was behind him, treat him carefully, fearing that he would use his 200 jin body to press on his small body. Sniper rifle. Sniper rifle. Wasn't this a modified version of the ACR-10? It was, right? It is impossible to get something like this in Japan. Kota Harino kept rubbing his big fat hand on the gun as if he was touching the body of his lover. There was also a crossbow in the cabinet. Was the owner a descendant of Robin Hood? It was a custom-built British crossbow that could kill bears. This was followed by a series of professional terms that Takashi Komuro could not understand. Takashi Komuro was speechless. He did not bother with Kota Harino anymore and walked to the open cabinet. He picked up the gun inside. However, Just as he turned around, he saw a glint of light on Kota's glasses as he squatted on the ground. Ah, that's an explosion-proof shotgun. It's a super-lethal gun made by the United States. It was used in the Vietnam War, although the Americans were beaten to the point of pissing their pants in the end. It doesn't stop it from being a good weapon, eh? Kaka. When Takashi Komuro heard Kota Hirano's explanation, he took a deep breath and racked the gun bolt, pointing the muzzle at the fat otaku. Ah! Kota Hirano screamed and hurriedly made a defensive posture. His fanaticism had completely disappeared. He spoke in panic. Even if it isn't loaded, the muzzle can't be aimed at people. The only thing it can be pointed at is a broken bar. At them. Takashi Komuro's tone suddenly became a little low. If only it could end like these, a broken bar. It's useless. Kota Hirano turned his head, and his expression darkened. The situation will only get worse. He raised his head, and the corners of his mouth rose. He smiled in a self-deprecating manner. In war, there are no peace talks and no surrender. Ah, it seems that you and Kota are having a good time. A charming voice sounded beside the ears of the two people. For some reason, they thought about how they wanted to peep before. Their bodies trembled, and they turned their heads stiffly. Senior sister Tokisakis, a broken bar. Halfway through his words, he stopped. The sight of Kurumi in her home clothes filled their eyes. She leaned against the cupboard on the side. Her beautiful eyes were slightly narrowed, and a lazy aura rolled off her. What's wrong? The teasing tone woke Takashi Komuro and Kota up. They were at a loss for what to do. They couldn't say that he had been mesmerized by their senior sister, right? Would they die if they did that? In the end, Takashi Komuro still stuttered a little. It's the first time I've seen senior sister Tokisakis dressed like this. You're too beautiful. Look at Kota. He's stunned. Yeah, broken bar. I didn't. It was clearly you, Takashi. A broken bar. Just as Kota Hirano was about to resist loudly, he heard Takashi Komuro whisper into his ear, Kota, if you don't admit it, I will tell senior sister Tokisakis that you wanted to peep at her. Takashi, what nonsense are you spouting? When did I say that? A broken bar? Just as the two of them whispered intimately to each other, Kurumi crossed her arms over her chest and slowly walked in front of Takashi Komuro. So, are you implying that I wasn't beautiful before? His nasal cavity was filled with Kurumi's fragrance, and the fresh floral fragrance made Takashi Komuro's face flush red. The hormones in his body started to stir restlessly. Kurumi's face was in front of him. Her cherry-colored lips were full of temptation. A broken bar. He forced himself to calm down by recalling the scene of Kurumi killing zombies and took a few steps back with a dry smile. How could he say that his little brother had woken up? Her fragrance was far too tempting, enough to make her commit a crime. Senior Tokisakis, you must be joking. You look good in everything. Really, it's just that we have never seen you dressed like this, so we feel amazed. Takashi, you really know how to talk. Seeing Kurumi gently cover her lips, her big wine-red eyes revealed a smile. Kota and Takashi heaved a sigh of relief. The broken bar. This tired them more than fighting zombies. In a broken bar. The two of them felt that something was off the moment they heard her say the first word. Tell me, between her and Saya, who is more beautiful? Chapter 33. Interests move the heart. After Kurumi finished speaking, she spun around, revealing her wonderful figure. Her fragrance still hadn't dissipated. Her moist long hair was coating in the scent of shampoo, but it still couldn't cover up Kurumi's personal fragrance. Takashi Komuro liked this far more than the girls in school who used cheap perfume. But when he saw Kurumi staring at the two of them with a playful look, he knew that he couldn't be fooled like this. Although he knew Kurumi was joking, although they had only spent an afternoon together, he knew the personality and strength hidden beneath her slender and beautiful figure well. Ha, ha, ha. Senior Tokisakis, you are the goddess of our school. How could you think of comparing yourself to her and the others? Takashi Komuro laughed and prepared to go over. So you mean that Miyamoto and Saya can't compare with me? Kurumi tapped her lips with her finger, a smile on her face. Her words almost made Takashi Komuro's heart pop out. How could that be? Before Kota Hirano could finish, Kurumi interrupted. It seems that Kota thinks that I can't compare to Saya. Woo, this really makes me sad. Seeing Kurumi slightly turn sideways, her little hand wiped the corners of her eyes, and her eyes turned a little red. He knew that Kurumi might be pretending, but she looked so pitiful. A broken bar. Kota Hirano was blown away. He hurriedly grabbed Takashi Komuro, who was retreating, and whispered, Takashi, what do you think we should do? Do look at me. If you make her cry, you should handle it. Go, go, go. I have to familiarize myself with the firearms. Takashi, you also have a part in this matter. If you wait for Buzujima and the other senior sisters to come out and see Tokisakis like this, what do you think they will do? Do you think we will meet a good end? Thinking over it, Takashi started to fear being thrown out to spend the night with the zombies. The two of them looked at each other. Simultaneously they nodded and walked to Kurumi with a smile on their faces. They looked like a pair of ancient slaves. Kurumi was invited to the sofa by the two of them. One poured her some water and went to find snacks. If Kurumi were not a woman, he would even give her a massage. But the consequences of a misunderstanding. A broken bar. Kurumi enjoyed the treatment of the emperor, but she was not used to being protected by two big men. She waved her little hand and said, that's enough, you guys. Go and do your work. There is no need for you here. Hearing this, the two of them wiped the sweat on their heads and ran to the cabinet on the other side of the room where they continued to fiddle with the firearms they found. A broken bar. Phew, she finally let us go. Takashi, you come to help too. Don't you know how troublesome it is to load bullets? Kota Hirano let out a sigh of relief and shouted at Takashi Komuro. Meanwhile, Takashi Komuro, who was sitting at the side, could not help but ask, did you learn how to reload a gun from playing with air guns? Kota, who was reloading, did not turn his head. Instead, a proud smile appeared on his face. How is this possible? I was playing with real guns. Huh? You've played with real guys before? Takashi Komuro was a little shocked. At first, he thought that he was just an ordinary fat otaku. Later, when he saw how familiar he was with guns and how obsessed he was with them, his evaluation of him rose to military otaku. But he did not expect Kota to have played with real guns. Kota Hirano recalled his previous experiences. When I went to the United States, the coach of the private military company, Blackwater, taught me for a month. He was the former captain of the Delta Special Forces. After that, he looked at Takashi Komuro with excitement. You are perfectly ready for this then. Fortunately, you don't hate me. Takashi Komuro was a little embarrassed. Although he had been traveling since he was a child, he had never been too far from his home. He was still a little envious of Kota Hirano's experience. Shock filled Takashi Komuro's heart as he looked at the ground covered in lethal firearms. So many guns, a broken bar, there must be enough to arm an entire squad. Speaking of which, Teacher Marikawa's friends are terrifying. These guns are all illegal. Actually, it is not illegal. Kota Hirano, who was still reloading, reminded, if the guns and parts can be bought separately, but it is illegal to assemble them. However, didn't Teacher Marikawa say that she used to be a member of the Special Police Force, SKT? Did he say that? Police officers can be lawless. Takashi Komuro looked at the guns on the ground with a serious expression. But I can be sure that she is not an ordinary person. A police officer who is not married has to live in the dormitory. How can she have a house? Either her family is rich, or her man is rich, a broken bar, or she is corrupt. Kota Hirano lowered his voice slightly. A broken bar. The girls in the bathroom were still playing around. Hearing their voices, Kota Hirano blushed. It's a little too noisy. Are you okay? Takashi Komuro held the military telescope that he had found in the cabinet and stood on the balcony to observe. Although the zombies react to sound, the noisiest thing around here is a broken bar. The telescope was pointed at the other end of the bed bridge where it was swarming with armed forces. The high-ranking staff sat in a police car behind a series of protective fences. They were using a speaker to constantly make announcements. Do not let anyone cross the bridge, even if they are family. You must repel them. Do not let the injured or people who attacked others pass through here. The people outside the blockade continued to argue with the police beside them, but nothing changed. No one knew which unlucky host had been assigned here to broadcast, but they were afraid she wouldn't be able to return a broken bar. The blockade in the western part of the main city is still ongoing. Frenzy has spread not only Japan but across the world. This method is meaningless. A portion of the residents have strongly criticized these actions. Also, because of the spread of frenzy, we can't go back to the Marine headquarters anymore, but we will continue to broadcast it through the satellite and bring you the latest news as soon as possible. Kurumi lay lazily on the sofa. From the moment she entered Lord God's space, she had never completely relaxed. Even if she returned to her space, she would wake up from nightmares. In the middle of the night, her broken bar. The television was broadcasting what had happened to the main bridge. All kinds of sounds mixed together, like a messy market. Kurumi found it a little funny. At this time, they should use tough methods and check them one by one. Once they found an infected, they should immediately kill them. But it was not like this. Although they said that it was completely closed, but, apart from a few explosion-proof cars and the iron fences, was it truly closed? It seemed like they hadn't learned their lesson yet. As long as one of them were bitten and turned into a zombie, then the defensive line would be a joke. There were too many people here. People were squeezing past people. According to Kurumi's calculations, at this distance, they could all be turned in less than 5 minutes. In less than 15 minutes, they would completely fall. At that time, the real hell would probably start. Considering the level of technology in this world, apart from nuclear bombs, Kurumi could not think a way to deal with it. As for buying a vaccine from Lord God, don't joke around. Not to mention Kurumi's lack of points. Even if she had enough, she would never do such a stupid thing. What could she get out of it? Moreover, benefits moved people's hearts, and vaccine might not be used properly. There were too many complications. Don't talk about the continuation of civilization with her. No matter who caused this disaster, it was a disaster that they should suffer. Those Gamma-level reincarnators were killed in one blow, so what was the death of 10 billion intelligent lives? Without enough benefits, she would do nothing. This was the wisdom of Reincarnator. Chapter 34, Suffocation. What do you mean you'll let us decide on our own? Where is your support? A middle-aged man in a police uniform shouted into the communicator. The communication is cut off. FCK. Pa. He hit the communicator with anger and anxiety. knocking it to the ground. "Commander, if this goes on, they'll make it through the roadblock." The young policeman ran over from the front while reporting to him. The commander of the unit had a head full of white hair. He was obviously an old fox who was about to retire and enjoy his later years, but now he had to face this disaster. Fortunately, his body was still strong, allowing him to be active on the front line of the battle. The years had left indelible marks on his face, like wounds from a blade, but his eyes burned with determination. This was the expression he had since he was a part of the army, but the exhaustion in it could not be concealed. He looked into the distance and said, "We don't have enough manpower. We even have the people from the accounting department here." His tone was a little low. Although he had been tempered after his many years of service, he still felt deeply impatient this time. But the young policeman was a little panicked. The chief turned his head. "Do you know the order from above was?" "It was as long as we can maintain order, we can do whatever we want!" Exclamation mark. "Looks like they have it pretty tough over there." Broken bar. Cold sweat appeared on the young policeman's forehead, who was wearing a hat. He was no longer a greenhorn. He had worked in the police department for a few years and knew how important this sentence was. "The last order from the police department is to do anything you can and do everything you can." "Then please give us the order immediately." The young policeman was tense. He gritted his teeth as he said this. He looked at the head of the class seriously. "Even if there are still citizens on the bridge and on the other side of the bridge, in order to maintain the overall situation, we can only sacrifice the minority." Bang! Hearing this, the head of the class showed signs of anger. He fiercely punched the window of the police car next to him. His knuckles that were red from the recoil and his dark expression were enough to frighten a child into crying. Of course, he understood that everything this young man said was right. This was his only choice, even if broken bar if his family was on the other side of the bridge. Broken bar. The wind was getting stronger and stronger, bringing with the fragrance of cherry blossom trees along its way. The petals followed the wind and floated over the bed. Under the moonlight, they were like little angels wandering upstream. Broken bar. Looking down, one could see the place Kurumi and the others had fought with zombies earlier. By now, it had filled up with zombies. People kept running from the city, but most of them did not make it through the big net formed by the zombies. Then they were either eaten or turned into zombies. This method of constantly replenishing numbers was simply uncounterable. Roars, cries for help, curses, cries, screams, and the creepy sound of chewing at flesh and bones. Some of the zombies' teeth were broken by the bones, but they did not stop moving. They did not feel anything and only wanted to eat the piece of flesh in front of it. This scene would make anyone's scalp go numb. Some abandoned their companions, some died together, some jumped into the river, and were washed away by the river. Their heads would resurface once or twice before disappearing forever. Crimes were rampant. Even under the pier, there was a gang of hooligans who kidnapped a beautiful woman. They were so tense that they were close to madness. They did everything they dared not do in the past. After confirming that there were no zombies around, the four of them restrained the woman who was struggling and screaming. One of them untied his belt and looked at the woman's desperate eyes, drinking in her fear as he prepared to stab it in. But it was too dark, and no one noticed the bite mark on the back of the woman's shoulder. There was a mountain of cars in the middle of the bridge to block the zombies, but the situation was not optimistic. Everything could change in the blink of an eye. After enjoying the food on their side, Takashi Komuro and Kota Hirano stood on the balcony and used the military-grade binoculars to constantly observe the situation. With this information, they could make preparations for tomorrow's escape. Kurumi nestled on the sofa, not wanting to move. There was only one program on the TV, but the scene playing out interested her slightly. On the TV, a wretched man with sharp eyes kept shouting slogans at the crowd. In times of disaster, people instinctively wanted to cling to each other, which meant that they were particularly vulnerable to the man's bewitching words. Following his lead, they constantly argued with the police who were maintaining the blockade. Bang, 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 bang. The sound of gunfire could suppress all of their actions even on the noisy bridge. The sound of the bullet's impact could be heard in the night sky. Even Kurumi, who was far away in the apartment, could hear it. Things are getting more and more interesting. Her lazy face finally twisted into a smile. In the depths of her wine-red eye reflect the collapse of the police blockade, and the bridge full of zombies. The policeman who fired the gun was stunned there. The zombies were already closing in. It was their first time facing these things, and their minds were shaken. The slightest touch would set off their sensitive nerves. Broken bar. A young mother held the child who had been bitten and constantly asked the police in front of her for help, but in the end, she was bitten by her child and also became a zombie. A bullet pierced through her head, causing blood to splash on the ground. She or it had died. The police officer who fired the gun fell silent. Apart from the sound of zombies moving, there was no sound at all. It was so quiet it made people feel strange. The oppressive atmosphere was finally broken by a roar of the tempter. The hateful police finally shot the citizens. The speed of his speech was fast, and his mouth sprayed disgusting saliva everywhere, but no one had time to pay attention to that. Well, except for Kurumi. She was disgusted by this persona broken bar. The words of the pointy-nosed wretched man were quickly accepted by the surviving citizens. No one dared to stop him. In the end, the commander of the group walked forward with a gloomy face and patted the shoulder of the man. He said with little patience, "Hurry up and disperse. It's dangerous for you to be here." The man with the sharp nose shouted at him, "Bullshit. This is sophistry. You're just trying to hide the dirty actions of the ZF." As he spoke, he kept waving his arms, as if this body language could increase his confidence. "I'll say it again. Leave." The commander's voice was emotionless, and this was his last reminder. "I firmly object." Scram, scram, scram. The crowd behind him also began to follow the man with the pointed nose and shouted, "Get lost." The commander placed his hand on the side of his waist. He was touching the cold and dark body of his gun. His tone did not fluctuate at all. Under the condemnation of the crowd, it was completely impossible to hear what he said. "The higher-ups have given their orders. As long as we maintain order, we can do whatever we want. Although it is a bit ridiculous, the order is absolute." The police officer held the left wheel in his right hand and pointed it at the man with a pointed nose. "Huh?" Bang. The man with the sharp nose only asked one question before his head was blown apart by the bullet. The sound of gunfire also made the people who resisted loudly quiet down. Then the TV screen became silent again. Kurumi, who was lying on the sofa, felt a presence. There was someone behind her. Looking back, Shizuka Marikawa, who was only wrapped in bath clothes, was holding her in front of her chest. Parfait. Her small head with soft black hair was wrapped by a pair of G-cup-sized rabbits, and the smell of bath gel and milk fragrance mixed together. She was suffocating Kurumi. Chapter 35, Red Spider Lily. Her sight was completely blocked. The enemy had made it difficult for her to breathe. In order to prevent accidentally hurting Shizuka Marikawa, Kurumi reached out her hand and grabbed at her shoulder in the darkness. "Oh!" Shizuka Marikawa moaned. The corners of Kurumi's eyes twitched unnaturally. She had accidentally touched a large rabbit instead. Whatever, who made her so big? Ignoring the soft lump in her palm, she continued to push forward. Kurumi finally saw the light again. The oxygen quickly rushed back into her brain. Seeing the sharp contrast between her little hand and the pair of giant rabbits, she could not help but complain, "These are probably bigger than even Ise Oimikyu's." Shizuka Marikawa did not care for the little hand Kurumi left on her body. Instead, she was more interested in what earlier said. She hugged Kurumi from behind the sofa with a flushed face. "Hey, San-chan, what did you say? Can you tell me? Did you drink?" Kurumi narrowed her wine-red eyes, wanting to regain control again. She was still a little unaccustomed to other people talking to her like this. Just her broken bar just a little bit as she spoke. Shizuka Marikawa burped. A slightly bitter smell of alcohol suffused the tip of Kurumi's nose. She found her hand in front of her in disgust. She hated this smell. "I will help you to the bedroom to rest." Kurumi was a little speechless. Then she thought about it. Every girl here had more or less been stained by some spilled wine. "I hope nothing bad happens. They look like they're going to trip over something." A broken bar. In the end, before Kurumi could finish speaking, Shizuka Marikawa closed her eyes in front of her. Her body leaned forward slightly, and she suddenly woke up again. Then her eyes slowly narrowed again. A broken bar 3 saucers. Plop dash. Since nothing was supporting her body, it smashed straight into the sofa. Kurumi dodged calmly and picked up the cup on the coffee table to drink a mouthful of water. She looked as calm as she could. When she returned to the sofa, she saw Shizuka Marikawa's exposed buttocks. She lowered her head to look at her well-defined body and muttered, "This is really a sad story, but it is also very inconvenient for her to be like these." A broken bar. Even though Shizuka Marikawa was much heavier than the average girl, Kurumi still easily picked her up. Looking at Shizuka Marikawa, who was abnormally mature and had thoughts like a child, Kurumi could not help but roll her eyes. She could not understand the requirements of the Japanese police special forces. The one Kurumi was holding would still happily help others even if she was sold. It seemed that her friend protected her a lot. The image of Kurumi and Shizuka Marikawa formed a sharp contrast. Kurumi looked petite, especially since she held Shizuka in a princess carry. From the side, it looked even more shocking. There was no muscle definition on her white jade-like arm to tarnish its beauty. Instead, it was like a natural carved jade that made people feel peaceful. If people didn't know her, no one would suspect this otherworldly-looking fairy to be more powerful than a demon. She was like a red spider lily. When people were confused, she guided their souls forward. She was like a poppy that even the gods were deeply infatuated with. As long as they took a whiff of her, they would willingly follow her orders. A broken bar. She threw Shizuka Marikawa straight onto the bed, placed the blanket on her, ignored the sleeping Saya Takagi, and walked downstairs. At this time, Kota Haruna was still on guard outside the balcony. Takashi Komuro had returned to the room and was meeting with his childhood sweetheart. Only wore the upper half of her pink pajamas, which meant it barely wrapped around Miyamoto's buttocks. The upper half of her breasts was exposed. It was easy to imagine how significant its impact was on the young Takashi Komuro. "Takashi, where are you going? Are you going to attack teacher Shizuka at night?" Looking at Miyamoto's narrowed eyes, along with his childhood sweetheart's words, his mind filled with Shizuka Marikawa's full figure under Miyamoto's gaze. His face immediately flushed red. How a broken bar? How could it be? I am just a little thirsty. Oh? Really? I don't believe you. Miyamoto's upper body slightly bent forward, and she looked at Takashi Komuro with her little mouth pouting. Takashi could be said to be in pain and happiness now. In pain because he did not know how to answer and was afraid of making Rengri happy because he could see Rei's chest from this again. The two dots of light pink were deeply imprinted in Takashi Komuro's mind, like photos that could not be deleted. The fragrance of Miyamoto's body filled his nose. His lower body was constantly bleeding. This senior broken bar was a little awkward. Why are the three Takashis? Huh? Takashi Komuro raised his head and looked at Miyamoto carefully. Only then did he realize that her face was abnormally red. He had assumed that it was from her bath until he smelled a familiar smell from her mouth. Miyamoto was excited to the point of falling to the ground. Takashi Komuro hurriedly went to help her up, but he heard her complain. I was tired, so I drank a little wine. Teacher Shizuka had a broken bar. It hasn't even been a day, but everything is messed up. I can't contact Dad, and we're going to die. A broken bar. She covered her face with both hands. Tears flowed down her palms and fell to the ground. Takashi heard the person he had always liked talking about her ex-boyfriend. Although they were friends, he still felt a little uncomfortable. His face darkened, and he did not speak anymore. Takashi, listen to me. Miyamoto, who had just calmed down, began drunkenly talking again. Takashi Komuro was helpless. How did he end up with such a childhood sweetheart? But the most pitiful part was that he really liked her. So, Iggy said that I looked very beautiful when I was reading a book. So broken bar. I told Iggy that when I was sad, he should listen to me and talk to me. A broken bar. Takashi Komuro sat beside her, looking a little silent. Was it really good to talk about another man in front of her man? A broken bar. That was one of the reasons I stayed with him, and Takashi would only be angry, not caring about my feelings. At a broken bar. Sometimes, you are such a blockhead. Takashi Komuro did not want to talk about this anymore, and his tone was flat. If I could be funny, I would become a comedian. A broken bar. Don't expect me to cooperate with you with everything. I also have my own situation. Miyamoto was still a little confused on the side and complained in a low voice. It was better with you. Shut up. Takashi Komuro stood up and roared. Is it fun to compare you and me whenever you have time? I'm not him. Why don't you compete with Tokisakis? Also, Iggy is already dead. After he became a zombie, I personally killed him. His voice slowly lowered. We are alive, and we must continue to live. We have to face reality. Takashi Komuro, who was speaking, felt Miyamoto pull at his clothes. The two sides fell silent and slowly leaned against each other. Kurumi, who was looking for food downstairs, happened to meet Seko Buzujima, who was cooking. She looked at her dressed in a white nightdress, her purple hair tied into a high ponytail. She had a unique flavor. Oh, it looks quite good. Thank you for the compliment. Although she was unsure what Kurumi was referring to, Seko Buzujima still gave her a big and comforting smile. Her beautiful eyes narrowed into two crescent moons. A broken bar. Bang. The gunshot rang out outside the apartment, breaking the silence of the night sky. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. Thy 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 36, Save Lily Operation. Kurumi turned to look out of the window when he heard the gunshot, and the corners of her mouth curved into a smile. Looks like we're going to have fun again. A broken bar. Komuro. Takashi hurriedly ran to the balcony and saw the serious-looking Kota Haruno. How is the situation? Not optimistic. A broken bar. Looking out of the railing downstairs, the dead bodies attracted by the gunshots and the barking of the dogs were slowly increasing. They already tended to surround the apartment. However, the dog did not run away. It just kept howling at the dead bodies not far away. A young man's frightened cry came from not far away. Then, there was no sound. He should have been surrounded and eaten by the dead bodies. Although he looked at the land under the bright moonlight, it was also dim. His sight was seriously blocked. The sound just now was not far from us, right? Maybe there are survivors. Komuro. Takashi stood on the balcony. He could only vaguely see a mass of unknown objects surrounded by dead bodies. He felt a chill in his heart. That is also the punishment he deserves. Kotoharuna turned his head and saw Kurumi, who pushed open the door and entered the balcony. If there is no accident, the one who shot just now should be him. This can be considered death. Otherwise a broken bar. Although Kurumi did not finish talking, Komuro, Takashi and the others still guessed what she would do. There was a wind blowing, and there were goosebumps on the back of her neck. Compared to the dead body, it seemed that Kurumi in front of them was more dangerous. There were more and more dead bodies downstairs. The noise was disturbing. Even Kurumi has to be cautious. In this environment, if she jumped down, the chances of survival were minimal. I would give you a claw when you were not paying attention, and you would probably be finished. When she saw the wall, Kurumi's eyes lit up. Maybe she could break through easily from above. This group of retards would not climb the wall now. I will get a gun to kill this group of dead bodies. After saying this, Komuro Takashi turned around and was about to go to the bedroom. However, he was stopped by Kota Haruno. Fat Otaku looked at him thoughtfully. You can't use a gun unless you are crazy. What kind of joke is this? Get rid of the dead body with a gun, and then everyone will be here. Broken bar. Komuro Takashi was a little agitated, but before he could finish speaking, Kurumi's look of looking at the dumb spores made him stop what he wanted to say. Are you retarded, huh? Did you forget what happened in the afternoon? The dead bodies respond to the sound. Also, turn off the lights. Although she was confused by Kurumi's last sentence, she still did it. When she was about to go to the bedroom, she found that the lights inside had been turned off. When the living see the lights and our figures, they will gather here. Besides, we don't have the power to save all the living people. Sekubu Uzujima walked out and explained to Komuro Takashi, take it and have a look. As she spoke, she handed the telescope to Komuro Takashi. This world is not a place that can be lived by courage. Kurumi walked to his side and patted him on the shoulder. She pointed at his beautiful little head with her other hand and said, the most important thing is the brain. Think more. I don't want you to be schemed against by others when you die. Although the words were very hurtful, Komuro Takashi still accepted them. A broken bar. He had to learn how to survive in this new world. Kurumi returned to the sofa in the living room, her fingers tapping on her long ivory legs. There is going to be a new branch. That little lie? Unfortunately, there is no reward. The final evaluation will be included. When he came to the balcony again, Kota Haruno was already sitting on the side, preventing others from seeing him. At the same time, he reminded Komuro Takashi, who had just arrived, if you want to observe, be careful. Don't let others see you. He nodded at Kota Haruno in a corner, squatted down, and carefully looked out with the telescope. 1 or 2 houses' light was still on. They seemed to be survivors like them. Looking to the side, 2 figures flashed and looked back. Only then did they see a man in his early 30s running with a little girl. The man was holding a large plier that was used for work. It should be his weapon. They saw a house with a light on, so they pushed open the outer door and entered. The little Lilai, who was being led, was still somewhat naive. When she entered the courtyard, she asked the man, Dad, where's Mum? The man closed the iron door, squatted down, and smiled at her. We will see Mom soon. Come over here. A broken bar. Bang, 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 bang. A broken bar, please, let us in. I have nowhere to run with the child. A broken bar. From the angle of the small room, he saw the 2 figures that were originally on the 2nd floor slowly disappear. It seemed that they had gone to the 1st floor to open the door. He let out a long sigh of relief. It seems that there are still many good people. After knocking for half a day, there was no response. The man pressed his ear against the door, wanting to hear what was going on inside. The little Lilai was scared as she stood behind him, hugging her waist. The footsteps slowly approached. The man was delighted and knocked on the door a few more times, shouting, Please, let us in. Don't come in, go somewhere else. A somewhat terrifying voice entered the man's ears. The expression on his face immediately stiffened, but he still did not give up hope. He pleaded slightly, Please, I don't care what happens. Please let my daughter in. A broken bar. There was no response. Instead, the lights in the room went out. The man clenched his fists tightly, and the veins on his hands bulged. His expression slowly became a little ferocious. Even the little Lilai at the side felt that something was wrong. He clenched his big pincers with both hands, clenched his teeth, and roared angrily, Open the door. If you don't open the door, I will break the door. I will break the door. He was about to smash the door with his raised pliers as he spoke. Wait. A broken bar. Wait, now. Open it now. The person inside seemed to have compromised. The light lit up again. Hearing the sound of the door lock turning, the man relaxed. At this time, the sound had already attracted the dead body by the side of the apartment. The door slowly opened. The man was a little happy. The little Lilai's smile also appeared on his face. He turned into a modest look. Perhaps he had been forced to do something like that just now. Thank you. I'm saved. A broken bar. Kai. Before the man could finish speaking, the sound of a knife cutting into flesh rang out. He looked towards his abdomen in disbelief. There was a fruit knife inserted there. Only the handle was exposed. The white shirt was dyed red by the blood flowing out. I'm sorry. A broken bar, please. Please forgive me. A broken bar. The little Lilai, standing at the side, was not discovered by the people in the room. She stared blankly at the blood dripping from the blade, drop by drop falling to the ground. The blade was pulled out and the door slowly closed. From time to time, apologetic sounds were coming from inside. The man's body swayed back, his eyes filled with despair. Bang. The little Lilai finally reacted and ran to the man, crying. She didn't know what to do when she saw him covered in blood. The man had a smile on his face as he forcefully mustered his last bit of strength. Dad, it's fine. Find a place to hide. Hide. Don't let anyone find out. A broken bar. His eyes slowly dimmed, and his palm no longer had the strength to support itself as it slid down. Dad? A broken bar, Dad. Woo-a exclamation mark. We agreed to be together forever. Dad, wake up. Woo-a exclamation mark. The little Lily hugged the man's head and cried loudly. More and more dead bodies gathered outside and were about to grab onto her body. Damn it. Komuro Takashi removed his telescope, his face filled with anger. Kota Hirano had already set up a sniper rifle on the other side. The bolt had already been pulled back, and the scope locked the dead body closest to the little Lily. Bang. Ding. You have a new side mission, and please check it out. Kurumi's mouth slightly raised in the darkness, and her hands were already covered in black. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 37, Save Lily Operation 2. Bang, bang, bang. Gunshots rang out continuously, and every bullet accurately hit the head of the dead body. The little Lily also kept retreating. Even guns that had never been used before could shine under Kota Hirano. Although it was only about 100 meters away from the sniping ground, the ability to kill the dead body so efficiently, with guns in the hands of Kota Hirano, could be regarded as a glimpse of the leopard. The person in the bedroom was still asleep. Her slightly raised eyebrows were like a nightmare. Kurumi had already received the side quest. As she expected, it was just a mission to increase the rating. However, no matter how tiny a mosquito was, it was still meat. Moreover, there was also a mission to kill a dead body, increasing the number of kills. She put on the black boots she took out from her space backpack and walked to the balcony. A broken bar could be a relatively fast destination. Kota, why did you shoot? Didn't you say that to live, you had to give up others? But that's a little lie. Kota Hirano seemed to be very excited. As soon as the nature of the dead house passed, she looked at Komuro Takashi with a serious expression. I can save her, right? I will cover you here. Just as Komuro Takashi was about to nod, the two of them discovered that Kurumi had pushed open the door and entered the balcony. Hee, I don't need you anymore. Kota, cover me. I Senior Tokisakis a broken bar before he could finish speaking. Kurumi stepped on the railing. Her slender and white legs looked even brighter under the moonlight. Then, he saw Kurumi jump down directly from her broken bar. He looked outside in a hurry. It didn't matter if this was the second floor, but there was still a wall. Ordinary people couldn't cross such a long distance. At least, he didn't dare to do it. He originally wanted to ride a motorcycle broken bar. Puff. With a roll to unload the force, Kurumi appeared safely on the street. She smiled at Kota Hirano on the second floor of the apartment. His face was red, and his heart was beating. She didn't waste any time and rushed away. The dead body on the road would be solved when she returned. Senior Tokisakis didn't take a weapon, did she? Isn't this dangerous? Kota, you continue to cover me. I'll go find Seko Uzujima. Looking at Kurumi's elegant body constantly flashing in the dead body, Komuro was sweating for her. It was very easy to go. Butte a broken bar. What about when you came? You have to know that bringing a person, even a child, would become big trouble. He hurried downstairs and happened to meet Miyamoto, who was awakened by the sound. Komuro, what's wrong? There is a child who is surrounded by dead bodies outside. Senior Tokisakis has gone to help her. I want to help her as much as possible. Then I will go with you. Let her go. Kurumi alone is going to the front line to fight. As a man, it will be difficult for her to do anything. Seko Uzujima's calm voice came from the corner. Don't worry, I'll try my best to bring them back. Komuro Takashi looked deeply at Seko Uzujima. I'll guard this place too. A broken bar. Buzz, buzz. The sound of the motorcycle made the dead bodies outside look at them. They rushed out while Seko and Ray quickly closed the door. The violent sound of the engine not only attracted all the dead bodies but even the sleeping Sayatagagi was awakened at a broken bar. It was hard to imagine that a middle school student, Komuro, could play with a motorcycle like this. Kurumi would not believe it even if she was beaten to death if it were in the 3 dimensions. Even the most talented person would not have this ability. A broken bar. Kurumi was very close to the house. Her brain was calm and constantly calculated how to dodge. It was like a precise computer. Under the reaction speed of an extraordinary person, as long as the brain gave the order, the nerves would immediately move the body to make the corresponding movements. The sniper rifle that Kota Hirano had set up on the balcony continued to fire. Not only did it ensure that the little Lily would not be harmed, but he could also open a path for Kurumi in his free time. When the survivors heard the gunshots, they all obediently stayed at home and did not dare move. They were afraid of getting into trouble. As for the dead bodies on the street not far away, more and more of them gathered because the sniper rifle's sound without a silencer was too loud. Outside the steel door of the apartment, the dead bodies that Kota Hirano shot were lying on the ground. Blood kept flowing out. If no one came to save them, even if the people inside had enough food and water, they would probably die of illness in the end. The illness brought about by the plague was like medieval Europe in the world of the cataclysm, enough to make them helpless. 2 ponytails, one long and one short, had long been left behind in the back of her mind because of the incredible speed of running. Even the golden pupils in front of her vaguely revealed a relatively exciting smile. At that time, the black gold gloves flashed with golden light from time to time, giving people a mysterious feeling that they wanted to pry into it. They were still 10 meters away from the apartment. Kurumi did not plan to enter through the door, but the wall closest to the little lily. Between the 2 points, a straight line was the shortest. She firmly remembered the words of the math teacher on Earth. She used force under her feet. The terrifying power brought by the explosive force directly made Kurumi fly up. If someone carefully observed her, they would be able to see the miniature cyclone surrounded by airflow under her feet. She was simply inhuman. Although she did not directly cross the wall, it was almost the same. She used her arm to borrow strength from the wall again. The palm of the black gold glove directly poured the solid of the wall, creating 2 spider-web-like cracks. Although Kotoharina was constantly working hard, too many dead bodies were there. Not to mention the muscle was too hot. Even the time to change bullets could not be delayed. Just like now, the 3 dead bodies had forced the little Lily into the corner. The puppy at her feet constantly roared at the dead body, as if it wanted to protect the little Lily, but the dead bodies attracted by it were even more. This kind of monster was not interested in it, but the little Lily on the side was in trouble. She sat on the ground and closed her eyes tightly, not daring to look again. Don't come over again, a broken bar. I didn't do anything bad. Dada, broken bar, mama, broken bar, we're broken bar. Her voice was soft, and the tears on her face were still flowing. If the Lily saw it, it would easily arouse their desire to protect her heart. But these dead bodies of broken bar were only interested in flesh and blood of the source of the sound. Bang! The impact of the airflow made the little Lily in the corner feel that Alice opened her eyes. She swore that she had seen a scene that she would never forget in her life. Kurumi controlled her dexterous body and stepped directly on the dead body's shoulder. The huge force brought by the 2 borrowed forces made the dead body directly kneel to the ground. Before it turned its head to bite, it was directly trampled into the mud by Kurumi. The remaining 2 dead bodies would not sense the danger around them, nor would they escape. Before Kotoharina could kill them, they were hit on the temple by Kurumi's small hand wearing black gold gloves. Brain blood splashed all over the ground, and the 2 corpses slowly fell. Woof! The puppy barked at Kurumi, its tail wagging continuously. It was happy about her arrival. The lights in the entire building had long been extinguished, except for the 2 small lights in front of the door that were still contributing light and heat. The figure beside the window on the 2nd floor saw this scene and was so scared that his body trembled, and he did not dare to make a sound. Kurumi seemed to feel something. She raised her head and showed a slightly broken smile to Hima Broken Bar. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. Thy 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 38, Save Lily Operation 3. The figure on the 2nd floor was shocked. He hurriedly covered his mouth with his hand, and bin-sized beads of sweat rolled down from his forehead, little by little. Boom, boom. There was no need for any techniques. Just the power of the black gold glove alone was enough to blow up the head of the dead body. The dead bodies in the courtyard were quickly cleaned up, and on the streets outside the apartment, many dead bodies were attracted by the sound. Alice looked at all of this in disbelief. If not for this beautiful big sister smiling at her, she would have thought it was a dream. The big sister was charming, even more beautiful than her mother, a broken bar. How is it? Can you still stand up? Kurumi smiled and stretched out her arm to her. In Alice's eyes, it was like the purest angel. Being stared at by Kurumi, she blushed and nodded shyly. Then, she stood up and patted the dust off her clothes. She did not despise the puppy on the ground at all. She directly hugged her in her arms. It must be known that the dog had been protecting her all this time. Buzz. Bang. Ouch. It hurts so. Broken bar. Komuro Takashi rushed all the way, showing his excellent driving skills. Unexpectedly, when he entered the door, he turned over the car, found the motorcycle in the warehouse, and directly threw him down to the wall. Komuro, are you here to make a fool of yourself? How is that possible? I am here to support you. A broken bar. Hearing Kurumi's teasing words, Komuro Takashi did not care about his sore butt and retorted loudly. However, following Kurumi's gaze, he looked at the motorcycle that crashed into the wall, and his voice became softer and softer. Kakadash. The iron gate of the courtyard was firmly locked. Although it was a little low, it was indeed a barrier that could not be crossed for these brainless dead bodies. Unless there were too many corpses, the door lock would directly burst. However, it seemed that it was not much better. The iron gate had been swaying all the time, like a small boat traveling alone in a storm, and could be swallowed by the huge waves at any time. Kurumi looked outside the door. The entire apartment was surrounded, and the densely packed dead bodies could not go down at all. Even if she wanted to tear out a blood road from it, there was a possibility of being injured. A broken bar, and once she was injured, who knew if this virus would work on the elves? However, it was still best to be careful. The best choice on the wall was. As for Komuro, it depended on his luck. A broken bar. More and more dead bodies gathered outside the street, making the people in the southern house feel a little uneasy. Sayatakagi returned to wake up Shizuka Marikawa, who was still asleep. Seeing her like this, she pinched her face hard for a long time to wake her up a little. What's wrong? The naturally dazed sleeping eyes did not know what had happened. There are too many dead bodies outside. We should continue to run for our lives. Wake up. Seeing that Shizuka Marikawa was about to fall asleep again, Sayatakagi shook her shoulders hard to ease her sleepiness. Then she rushed to the balcony and told Kotoharino to get ready to escape. Then she walked to the door, panting. How a broken bar, how is it? When Kurumi and Komuro come, we can continue to run to the bridge, right? The dead bodies were attracted by the motorcycle in the small room, so we are safe now. As for whether they can come back safely with a little girl or broken bar, then why don't we go and pick them up? Everyone turned to look at Shizuka Marikawa, who was still dazed. She did not care at all and was buttoning her white shirt. There are cars and keys. My broken bar, this is a good idea. Then what are we waiting for? Let's save Kurumi and the others and run to the other side of the river. After hearing the news, Takagi was excited because he broken bar. As long as they reached the other side of the river, they would not be far from her home. At that time, as long as her father's subordinates found them, they would return safe and sound. That way, they would be able to relax completely. A broken bar. Big sister. Alice tugged at the corner of Kurumi's pants. Dada, broken bar, is he dead? She gently touched the little Lily's hair. He died to protect you. He is an amazing father, but in this world, the dead cannot be revived. Komuro Takashi picked up a white shirt from the side and covered the man's head. The little Lily finally could not hold back and cried while hugging Kurumi. It was not that Kurumi's heart was not moved, but it was just a little bit. She had seen too many similar scenes, just like watching a completely replaced movie. You would not cry every time, and every time you were sad, time will give you the best answer. A broken bar. The people in the southern house began to move stealthily. Taking advantage of the fact that the dead bodies were attracted, they quickly came to the military horses outside. This thing was still a modified version. From the outside, it looked like a small armored car. Sekubu Uzujima was on alert. Takagi and Miyamoto were carrying the materials they needed. Shizuka Marikawa sat in the driver's seat and was about to insert the key. She was stunned. She had never driven this thing before. Even the school bus could be found in similar places, but these are broken bar. Kota Hirano was still observing the dead bodies on the second floor. There was no relaxed expression on his face, especially the dead bodies around the apartment. There were too many of them. He looked at the modified fierce horse. Although it was fierce, he was not very confident about it. In this situation, we can only be rescued safely unless we use the tank. A broken bar. Only when the light shone on his face did he realize that it was Takagi who had reminded him to leave. He quickly packed up the firearms and ammunition and casually put his backpack on his shoulder. He looked like a soldier who had been on the battlefield for a long time. A broken bar. All right, don't cry anymore. It will attract a dead body. Kurumi spoke in a rare gentle tone. The little Lily was still sobbing slightly. I said broken bar. Is it those monsters outside? Komuro, we are going to leave. How do we leave? The door is locked. We can't fly. Broken bar. Before Komuro finished, he saw Kurumi carrying the little Lily and jumped directly onto the wall. He stood firm. What are you waiting for? Come up. Aye sister, the dog has not been taken away. Kurumi looked at Komuro in their yard. He did not need her to tell him anything. Komuro directly held the puppy in his arms. What I want to say is, pass me the steel pipe next to the hanger. A broken bar. The wall was not high, and the dead body could be touched by her hand. For safety, Kurumi chose to carry Alice behind her back. Her body coordination was far better than that of ordinary people. Standing on the wall like a wooden bridge, she did not feel discomfort. As for Komuro, it was like facing a great enemy. Looking at the group of dead bodies below, he was afraid that if he was not careful and fell, even his bones could not be seen. He kept swallowing his saliva. His willpower was crazily concentrated, forcing himself to only look at the wall. Big sister, your body smells so good. A broken bar, just like my mother. Kurumi turned her head slightly so that Alice could only see the delicate half of her face like the goddess of the moon. Do you want to avenge your father? Before the little Lily could understand what was going on, Kurumi shouted to Komuro behind him. Komuro, throw your gun to me. Although he wasn't sure what Kurumi wanted this thing for, he still carefully threw it over. She caught the gun steadily and turned it around a few times. She looked at the shadows on the second floor and smiled at them. Bang, bang. With 2 gunshots, one bullet broke the lock of the yard's iron gate, and the other bullet broke through the wooden lock of the house, and the dead body entered in a line. I wish you all a good dream. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 39, Breakthrough. A soft and charming voice entered her ears. Alice did not expect this beautiful big sister to do this. Although she deeply hated the enemy who killed her father, she still wanted to lead this monster to someone else's home. Lying on Kurumi's soft back and smelling the natural fragrance, this matter had planted a seed in her young heart. Kurumi thought that she was not a good person, but she still liked to use it on others. Since she killed others, she had to be prepared to be killed. When she was in the main god space, she had always believed in the policy of first strike to gain the upper hand, then later strike to suffer. As long as she figured out the truth, it was hard to make more preparations no matter what the opponent was. Moreover, didn't those people also contribute to them? In any case, they will die sooner or later. Why don't you help us share some of the pressure first? Yes, there is no psychological burden at all. Just like how you stepped on a few ants. Do you still feel guilty about their death? Hearing the miserable screams from the apartment behind him, Komuro Takashi felt a little apprehensive. He looked at Kurumi, who was carrying the little Lily in front of him, and his head was slightly sweating. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was a poisonous beauty, but the little kindness she inadvertently revealed made people feel as if they were bathing in a spring breeze. I don't understand a broken bar. Behind him, Komuro was still trying to maintain the balance of his body. Kurumi, who was carrying the little lily, seemed to be taking a walk. She held a steel pipe that she pulled out from the hanger and continuously attacked below the dead body. Whoosh, boom. Most of the attacks came from the dead body's eye sockets or mouth. The powerful follow-up force was enough to kill them completely. There were also a few that were precisely hit in the head by the precise control technique. If someone were to hold the steel pipe in Kurumi's hand and observe it, they would find that there were two small handprints vaguely printed on the back end of the pipe where her hands were holding. The dead bodies were divided into parts, but many dead bodies were still outside the wall. They were about to reach the end. Kurumi couldn't escape without caring about Alice. Moreover, she wanted to continue to kill the dead bodies, so she had to move slowly. The steel pipe in her hand flashed back and forth. Komuro dazzled. If he didn't quickly look down at the wall, he would probably faint in a short while. At that time, the dinner of this group of dead bodies below would be settled. A broken bar. In the southern house, everyone was ready, but they were speechless when they saw Kota dressed like he was going to fight a war. Sitting in the car, they were not asking you to go out. Was it necessary? Shizuka Marikawa, this old driver, did not disappoint everyone. Although she had never driven this kind of car before, even the experts in the army would have to be polite when she started. Kota vaguely knew why the SAT would use this natural idiot broken bar. Her hidden talent was max, although the car's body was not good compared to the school bus. When it came to horsepower, even if the old car was played to the extreme, it could not compare to this small armored vehicle lightly stepping on the accelerator. The car's whole body was made of super thick composite steel plates, and the glass was naturally anti-bullet. There would never be an awkward scene where the school bus crashed and almost smashed the glass. Shizuka Marikawa stepped on the gas pedal, and the quiet monster that had stayed in place let out a long roar. The engine provided to the military was indeed extraordinary. Even though the entire car's weight was far beyond normal, the powerful horsepower it brought was still enough to let this modified fierce horse race wildly. Bang, bang, bang. The abnormally hard armor, coupled with the extremely high speed, caused the dead body to be thrown high into the air, falling to the ground and becoming a puddle of mud. The enormous power allowed this monster to run amok in a crowded street of dead bodies. She stopped when she was about 2 to 3 meters away from the wall. We can't go back inside. Otherwise, the number of dead bodies will be enough to trap this car to death. Sekobu Uzujima jumped down from the car's roof and cleaned up the dead bodies on the other side. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and jump over! Sayatakagi shouted from the top of the car. The dead bodies could not catch her at this height. Kurumi dragged the little lily behind her. Alice also consciously hugged Kurumi tightly with both hands. The steel pipe in her hand was directly thrown away. The distance of 2 or 3 meters was effortless for her, even if she carried someone on her back. Jumping over the dead bodies with one step, Martin Boots directly stepped on the roof of the car, stuffed Alice into the carriage, and turned to look at Komuro. He thought that his sports nerves were not bad. Although he had not won any ranking in the competition, he was among the best in the class. But standing on the wall, directly jumping 2 or 3 meters away, he was still a little afraid in his heart. There was no helping to run at all. If he were not careful, he would fall. More and more dead bodies gathered. Shizuka Marikawa could feel depressed in the car. If she spoke more, she might not be able to rush out safely. What are you afraid of? Tokisakis, a girl, jumped over while carrying someone on her back. You only brought a dog with you. Are you afraid that you won't be able to jump over? This is a bit too much. Senior Tokisakis is simply inhuman. Komuro responded loudly as if he wanted to weaken the fear in his heart. I will buy time. Before Sayatakagi could react, she saw Kurumi jump out of the car. Tokisakis, we're broken bar, but the next scene made her swallow the words she wanted to say. Boom. In addition to stabilizing his body, Kurumi's punch released the greatest amount of force. The combination of the grappler mastery and black gold gloves created a terrifying chain reaction. This small group of dead bodies were like dominoes, falling one after another. The golden silk on the black gold gloves had a faint radiance flowing. On the other side of the street where dead bodies were, Kurumi was the only one who took care of it. She continuously swung her fist shadows, and then the bodies fell to the ground. The slender limbs and their bodies on the ground caused a huge shock to Sayatakagi and the others. Kurumi naturally had her plans. Since there was no need for you to ask anything behind the scenes, it would be a bit stupid not to go down and harvest the dead bodies at this time. She was still far from being able to kill 10,000. The fist kept hitting the dead body's head. Fortunately, the black gold gloves had already absorbed more than half of the reaction force. Otherwise, Kurumi's delicate hands would probably be injured. Even now, she could feel her bones protesting. The pain from the finger bone transmitted to her brain, constantly stimulating the nerve center. The high-intensity output made Kurumi somewhat unable to withstand it. The strength of this body was still a lot weaker. Komuro's eyes focused on the wall. He knew that he could not delay any longer. Kurumi had cleaned up even the dead bodies below. If he did not jump over now, he would not have such a good opportunity. Holding the puppy in his arms, he ran directly on the wall and finally flew out. Fortunately, He did not slip. The run-up was perfect. He felt that he could even participate in the university games. Komuro almost jumped off the car. If the person did not force him, he would not know his potential. Are you done? Get in the car. We are leaving. Hearing Shizuka Marikawa's shout, Kurumi kicked the dead body in front of her away. She pressed her palm on the car's body and went to the roof of the car. Sekobuzujima also took the opportunity to enter the carriage. The engine of the modified Fierce Horse roared again. Buzz. A broken bar. The dead bodies chased the yellow-haired man and the others carrying Koichi Shido. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 40. The correct way to open the mutation. Save me. Save a broken bar, save me. The girl running at the end was thrown to the ground by the dead body. At least 7 or 8 of them were lying on her body and gnawing. Her clothes were torn into pieces of rags, revealing the blue underwear inside, making her look particularly naked. Yellowhair didn't want to see this scene at all. Even if he was a bad guy, he also paid attention to exercising his body. He was slowed down a lot by the stick of Miyamoto. However, the violent breathing when he ran made his abdomen ache faintly. It's all that kid's fault. He vowed that it would be faster to pass through them all. Damn it, why did I believe him at that time? Now he provoked a large group of dead bodies. It doesn't matter if you die, but push us into the fire pit. Huff a huff dash. He panted heavily, like a bellows. His throat was filled with the smell of rust. Even though he had lived in this city for more than 10 years, he was still not familiar with the place where he was running, but those dead bodies would not be tired at all. The students who got off the bus with him before, otherwise they would have died, or they would have run in front of him, and he would have fallen to the end. He felt a gust of cold wind behind him. He couldn't take it anymore. If this went on, he would be finished. Would I have been forced to this extent if not for this pig? His eyes narrowed, and his heart became ruthless. Regardless of whether or not the unconscious Koichi Shido behind him could hear him, he said, Koichi Shido teacher, you can't blame me for this. I have done my best to bring you all the way here. If this continues, we will probably be finished. Don't you usually like to take care of your students? Then, there's a broken bar this time. I'll have to count on you. After he finished speaking, he let go of Koichi Shido's hands and allowed him to fall backwards. Bang. A broken bar. I want you all to die a horrible death. As the yellow hair spoke, he somehow woke up. His heart was anxious, but he could not resist. He could only be abandoned by the yellow hair and fell to the ground. The dead body behind him rushed up and bit Koichi Shido. He released the most vicious curse at the last moment of his life. After the yellow hair threw away Koichi Shido, his body instantly became light. He almost staggered and fell to the ground. Fortunately, Koichi Shido teacher used his body to block the dead body for him. He was very touched. This was a real good teacher. But when he heard the heart-wrenching roar, he could not help but shiver. Yellow hair, who didn't have any burdens, quickly caught up to the few students in front of him. Everyone had heard the sound just now, but no one said anything. They could keep running at this time. If they were to catch a breath, then they would be finished. After running for more than 10 miles, the group of dead bodies behind them slowly disappeared. Yellow hair and the others were tired. They directly sat on the ground and looked up at the starry sky. This was already considered the suburbs. Oh, what's wrong? A girl sitting on the ground opened her mouth with difficulty and asked, huh? The yellow hair swayed as he walked over to the girl, who let out a muffled groan. He looked at her wide-open eyes. Her originally clean and beautiful eyes were no longer colorful. She placed her finger under her nose with a slight tremble. She is dead. A broken bar. How is that possible? She was fine just now. The other person seemed to be unwilling to accept the truth. She hasn't been bitten by a dead body. A broken bar. How did she die like this? Yellow hair lay on the grass. She had too much exercise, and her heart couldn't take it anymore. After she finished, she sat directly on the ground. Her heart suddenly stopped. We didn't have time to fight for her just now. You are broken bar. The girl with a weak personality began to cry. When she was fleeing, she was eaten by a dead body. Now, another one died in front of her. The entire team was left with her. In addition to the yellow hair, there were still 5 people in this team. A broken bar. 4 boys and 1 girl became silent. No one wanted to speak. What should he do in the future? Where should he go? A broken bar. Since Koichi Shido was left, dead bodies surrounded him and constantly bit his body. This pain could easily make people faint, but he felt everything. That kind of feeling of wanting to die but not wanting to die. His nerves were sensitive, and his mind was abnormally clear. He swore that if there were a chance to never, he would torture everyone to death, especially Kurumi Tokisakis and that yellow hair. His eyes were red, and the pain constantly stimulated his senses. What was the feeling of watching himself being eaten up? In any case, once Koichi Shido saw it, his eyes were dug out and eaten until there was darkness in front of him. He could feel that flesh and blood on his body were separating from his bones. Even his skull had a hole in it. The sound of his brain marrow flowing away made him extremely frightened. Why did I feel this? Shouldn't I have died a long time ago? Why do you still torture me? Haven't I suffered enough since I was a child? Even after I died, There was no peace with hatred, his father, as the others thought about it. Their consciousness slowly became blurry until empty. A broken bar. What happened to me? Koichi Shido rubbed his aching head in confusion. Didn't I go to school? Why did I come to this place? The sudden pain made him feel like his body was being torn in half. He kept rolling on the ground. The pain made him lose his mind. His right hand formed a fist and smashed into the ground. It kept smashing out as if it could reduce his pain. However, he did not notice that the cement ground hit by the fist had been split into a spider web. The center of it had sunk a lot. Kurumi Tokisakis, I will make you die a horrible death. He remembered everything and roared at the sky. He looked at his completely mutated arm. It was green and had barbs on it. It looked extremely ugly. Compared to the floor on the other side, a broken bar, it was about 3 meters tall. There were a few dead heads on its waist. He could feel the power of this body, although it had become neither human nor ghost. As long as he could make that bitch pay the price, everything was worth it. Boom, boom. With a casual strike, the tall pillar on the side of the street was directly broken and smashed to the ground on the other side. It seemed that he and the group of dead bodies had emerged into one. The clothes on his body had long exploded. Even the fifth limb under his crotch was abnormally thick, with barbs on it. The dark blue blood vessels were coiled on it, and a faint liquid dripped from his head. That bitch Tokisakis must have run far away. The yellow hair and the others should still be not far away when I find them. HMPH for broken bar. The ugly collapsed nose twitched slightly, and he smelled the scent of humans dozens of miles away. The fragrance made him drool. There are almost no people nearby. There are at least 5 or 6 people over there. Haha, cute students, the teacher is looking for you. When the time comes, I will give you a big surprise. He took a big step forward and ran straight away. Every step he took shook the ground. The thick and solid root under his crotch swayed back and forth, making him feel uncomfortable. It was not until he pulled down a curtain and surrounded it that he felt much better. A broken bar. Kurumi stood on the car's roof and rubbed his slightly red nose. The cold wind in the early morning was stronger than the night. They were about to reach the bed bridge. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 41, Shadow in the River. When they reached the edge of the bridge, the sky had already become slightly bright. The sun in the east had already revealed half of its body. There was wind blowing past, but it was no longer the same as usual. There was a smell of grass in the clean air. The smell of blood on the main bridge of the bed was too strong. God knows how many people died here. There were more cars than last night, but no one was alive. The blockade had already been torn open. Even the police armored vehicle was still there without any movement. It was likely that the situation was urgent, and there was no time to drive. Standing on the roof of the car and looking into the distance, there were still scattered dead bodies on the bridge. As for the rest, a broken bar. Even so, this modified fierce horse still could not pass the bridge. Shizuka Marikawa had to go upstream. The water there was very shallow. It should be enough to make this beast cross through the river. After all, this car was completely waterproof. The truth was just as she expected. The water level in the morning could be said to be at the lowest. It was only drowning the wheels and approaching the window. The blue sky and the water surface echoed each other from afar. If not for the outbreak of the dead body, it would probably be another good day for an outing. But now a broken bar, everything has changed. Even if they reached the other side of the river, the rampage of the dead body in one night would not be much better than here. Lay down the river. With so many people accompanying her, Alice seemed to have walked out of the shadow of her father's death. As for whether she was pleased or forced herself to forget her sadness, at such a young age, it was not something she could bear. Even the concept of death was vague to her. She only thought that her parents had gone to a very distant place and never returned. Only she had experienced that kind of thing, and perhaps she could see through a broken bar. The crisp voice of a Lilai sounded in the carriage, and there was also Kota Haruno, the Lilai, singing with him. The devilish child was annoying for him, but such a well-behaved Lilai made him vaguely awaken something in the depths of his heart. It was an unknown object called Soul of the House. Kurumi, who was lying on the carriage roof, looked up at the sky, leaving only 2 thin white legs shaking gently in the carriage. At this time, even if the sun had risen a lot, it was not dazzling. The gentle rays of light sprinkled on the ground as if they were for comforting the land that was full of pain. She raised her small hand and covered it slightly. The black gold gloves had already been taken off. The knuckles on her jade-like hands were somewhat red, making people unable to help but feel pity for her. The 2 ponytails also scattered behind her. Her golden pupils were faintly discernible under her bangs. Her strange pupils and her pretty face that was close to perfection were likely to fall in love with her at first glance. The quiet Kurumi had a different kind of charm. She inadvertently revealed the weakness that made her even more perfect. Her cherry lips were stained with water, rosy and full of elasticity. It made people want to kiss her. However, people who had this kind of thought a broken bar were all dead. The crisp voice of a Lilai echoed in her ears. Kurumi rubbed her messy hair and could not help but complain. Why are they so energetic? Didn't they sleep all night? Maybe you're too tired. Kurumi, aren't you the same? Didn't you have a lot of fights with a dead body? Seko Uzujima looked up at her, smiling. Sekubuzujima turned her head to look at the river, and the breeze blew her purple hair. I remember that when I was practicing my swordsmanship, I woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning. I couldn't sleep until late the next day, but I feel full. Deep sleep? Kurumi was a little curious. She had always been envious of this ability when she was weak. However, other than some samsara travelers who could meditate or were born, even the Lord God did not exchange for the related products. It could not be said that there was no one. The meditation required for those cultivation techniques and abilities was also counted. However, very few people would sit down and absorb the free energy so honestly. Usually, there were busy tasks and making various plans. How could they have time to do these things? They all needed to make some high-energy substances to absorb them to quickly reach the edge of advancement. Unless it was a kind of mission that would stay for 100 years or 1,000 years, it was incredibly boring. There was no high-energy substance reaching the limit of the current realm. They would then calm down and slowly absorb energy to stabilize their strength. They can't be like Kurumi. They can exchange all kinds of things in the mission. Even the reincarnation points are placed last, not to mention those attribute points. Master God won't give you a single coin until the points are settled. Yes, it should be. Since practicing the sword path, I have been like this. I can be energetic after sleeping for 3 or 4 hours a day, even if I don't sleep occasionally. I'm so envious. After saying this, Kurumi lay down again. Her little head slightly tilted to the side and saw ripples not far away. There were a few small fish swimming happily under it. Sekubuzujima followed Kurumi's gaze. It seems that this virus can only infect humans at the moment. Those animals don't seem to have changed at all. Ha, don't joke like this, Seko. If the animals also mutate, what will those unknown existences in the sea become? I'm afraid that humans will need to be cleansed by nuclear bombs. Hearing Sekubuzujima's words, Kurumi, initially lazy, focused slightly. She knew very well that this was not an anime, the world where only humans were dead. Now that the Lord God had a foot in it, everything became confusing. It was possible. What if the animals mutated? Thinking about the rulers on the land, and then thinking about the giant monsters in the ocean, a broken bar. Oh my god, is this going to be changed into a low-end version of the devouring star Earth? In that place, the island seemed to be directly a broken bar. For the first time, Kurumi felt that her world was very dangerous. She hoped that Master God would leave some integrity behind. We have reached the other side of the river. Kurumi also took the task to heart. After all, it was a real reincarnation point. At first, she guessed that there was something in the river, but the water was so deep that she had a lot of doubts. Maybe there would be an attack when she reached the shore, but no matter what it was better to be alert. All aspects of the attributes had improved. Why was she still so sleepy? Looking at the main character and group in the carriage, even the little Lily did not show any signs of sleepiness. Kurumi felt that the world was very malicious to her. Alright, her broken bar. Sekubuzujima's voice sounded again. Kurumi sat up and asked, Kurumi, did your broken bar ever practice swordsmanship or other things? Looking at Kurumi, who was slender and white like a young lady, Sekubuzujima could not help but ask her a question. Me? Kurumi showed a strange expression, and then a smile appeared on his face. I have practiced Sanda, free fighting, key skills, military fighting techniques. By the way, most of the guns can be mastered a broken bar. This is the first time I have come in contact with swordsmanship. Although she felt that the elf-like girl would not lie to her, she was still confused and blurted out, Kurumi, how did you live in the past? Guess. A smile bloomed in front of her eyes. For the first time, Sekubuzujima felt a good life. However, neither of them noticed a shadow slowly approaching under the water not far away. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 42, Whiplash. The two people on the roof of the car looked back. There was a black shadow under the blue river about 10 meters away. Kurumi had already taken out the black gold gloves. Sekubuzujima stood on the roof of the car with the steel knife. The two of them stared at the black shadow. What kind of creature was this? How could there be such a big fish in a fish? The black shadow was fully unfolded. Kurumi estimated that it was at least 6 or 7 meters long. No matter what it was challenging to deal with just its body size. Moreover, it was in the middle of the river. Puff, puff. The water's surface burst open, revealing the true face of the black shadow. Kurumi could feel that Sekubuzujima next to her had loosened up. She let out a sigh of relief. Phew. I thought it was a monster. It turned out to be a manta ray. Manta ray? Although Kurumi had some doubts, she did not relax. The size of this thing gave her a bit of pressure. Yes, it is the devilfish. They are usually on the coast. Why did they come to this river? Seeing that Kurumi was still acting as if she was facing a great enemy, she could not help but smile. Don't worry. It is not aggressive. It is usually lively. I think it has not seen a boat since entering the inner river. Now that it has found our car, it is probably trying to prank us again. This river connected to the sea? How did it survive in such shallow water? Kurumi did not let her guard down. Instead, she put on the black gold gloves. Also, I don't remember any fish ice a broken bar. They are blood red. Kurumi, you also a broken bar. Bang. Before Sekubuzujima could finish speaking, The demonic fish charged and hit the side of the modified horse. Kurumi grabbed Sekobuzujima that almost flew away. Is this little prank you were talking about? Fortunately, the water was shallow. Otherwise, the impact from the demonic fish would have knocked the vehicle down, even if it were for a small armored vehicle. The thick steel plate on the side of the car had been dented as if a large caliber sniper rifle had hit it. The people in the car were knocked unconscious, and even the sleeping Komuro Takashi was knocked to the other side. What's wrong? What happened? Miyamoto was a little frightened. While firmly grasping the seat, she looked at the skylight. The sky was still blue, but a few drops of water entered the interior of the carriage. It was so cold that it made people feel apprehensive. Kurumi's brain worked quickly. The devilfish could not be touched. Otherwise, she would probably be beaten to the point that her whole body would be broken. It was almost 6 meters wide. Its weight could reach 4,000 kilograms. The power brought by this attack, a broken bar, must go ashore. Teacher Shizuka, step on the accelerator. Don't worry about anything else. Just rush straight to the shore. Wang. The engine of the modified fierce horse was running at high speed. However, the water resistance was too great. The bottom of the river was covered in mud and sand. For a moment, it was a bit slippery. The demonic fish was still circling the car's body at a moderate pace. It seemed to be curious about this. However, in its blood-red eyes, Kurumi only saw brutality. Its originally beautiful black dorsal fin was wrapped in blood-red threads, giving off an extremely evil feeling. Bang! The demonic fish turned around again and used its tail whip to ruthlessly strike the other side of the body of the car. Kurumi could even hear the tragic sound of steel. There was a thorn on its tail, and this strike made a few small holes in the thick steel plate. There's a leak in the car. What is outside? Komuro Takashi had not yet recovered from his shock when a huge force hit him on the other side. Alice was very quiet at this time. She covered her mouth. She was held in the arms of Kota Hirano and did not suffer any damage. On the other hand, Kota Hirano was not feeling well. His fat body hit back and forth in the carriage. Even the glasses flew away. There were signs of cracks on the elbows of the Black Skull uniform. If it were for 1 or 2 more times, the joints might not be able to withstand it. Miyamoto and Sayatakagi firmly grabbed the seat. Although they did not roll back and forth, it was not the first time that their heads had been smashed together. A broken bar. Shizuka Marikawa, sitting in the driver's seat, was the safest. She had always put on her safety belt since she was aware of the traffic. Even if she charged at it twice, it would still be fine. There was only a pair of big rabbits jumping back and forth. Would it be uncomfortable to be so tight? Kurumi and Sekobuzujima, who were on the car's roof, were not peaceful. They had to observe the movements of the demonic fish and remind Shizuka Marikawa to dodge. Her hands grabbed the solid things in the car tightly. Kurumi, who was wearing black gold gloves, was twisting the gap between the skylight and the other side of the window. She looked at the shore anxiously. It was still far away. If this continued, everyone in the car would be buried in the belly of the fish. As for whether it ate people or not, she would know when she looked at the mutated humans. Kota, throw the sniper rifle to me. Oh, our broken bar. Good. Kota Hirano opened his mouth with some difficulty responding. After he had no glasses, the world he saw was only a blur. He endured the pain in his body and fumbled for the gun thrown at him. At this moment, the mutated demonic fish suddenly jumped out of the river. Its huge body seemed to cover the sun. Who knew how it obtained such great kinetic energy in such shallow water? Kaie. The figure that jumped up was much taller than Kurumi, who was half squatting on the roof of the car. Then it made an extremely unreasonable turn and swung its sharp tail at Kurumi's face. The strange eyes shrank to the size of a needle. The scream of Sekobuzujima and the sound of the tail whip breaking through the wind came into her ears. In this world, this was the first time that she was in such a dangerous situation. Her face was slightly ferocious. She tried her best to dodge to the left. Her right hand began to return to the left, and the force on her body shrank to the maximum. The golden threads on the black gold gloves seemed to come alive and flowed back and forth like liquid. Bang! Sizzle! The tail whip came as expected and ruthlessly struck Kurumi's right hand. Fortunately, the black gold glove was on. The two objects that were also not metal produced sparks from the friction. Boom! Broken bar. Cough cough. A broken bar. The mutated demonic fish fell back into the river while Kurumi sat on the car's roof. Her chest felt a little stuffy, and she coughed a few times before she slightly recovered. Sekobuzujima looked at Kurumi anxiously, but she still had to pay attention to the movements of the mutated demonic fish. Kurumi, you can go to the carriage first. I will be fine on the carriage alone. Ha! I don't believe you can withstand the attack just now. A broken bar. Kurumi stretched out her trembling right hand. Several scratches of 2 to 3 centimeters on the secondary black cotton part of her palm. This time, if not for the black gold glove, my hand would probably have been crippled. Senior Tokisakis. Catch the gun. Kota Hirano had just found the sniper rifle, but because of another whip strike from the mutated demonic fish, the corner of his eye was swollen. Even though Kurumi had already blocked it, the vibration in the car was still intense. The strength of that strike was obvious. The gun was directly thrown out of the skylight. Just as Kurumi was about to reach out to catch it, it hit the car again. Kurumi collapsed and flew out. The gun was still in the air and was about to fall. Her eyes narrowed. Her small foot, wearing a polo boot, exerted a little force. It hooked the sniper rifle and made it crash in the direction where Kurumi was flying. Plop. The surface of the water rippled and burst open. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. Thy 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 43, Confrontation. The river was not deep, but there was a bone-chilling feeling. It was the first time that Kurumi had been smashed into the riverbed. The stirred mud and sand surrounded her, making the river water slightly turbid. She successfully got the sniper rifle she had thrown over from Kotahirano. It was the one he had used to kill a dead body on the second floor of the apartment. Although the process of holding the gun was a bit complicated, Kurumi did not want to fight the mutated demonic fish head-on. The muddy river water blocked Kurumi's vision. She pressed her left hand against the sand and forced herself to stand up. Her long black hair was wet. When Seko Buzujima saw that Kurumi was okay, she let out a sigh of relief. Then she became anxious. Kurumi, pay attention to the fish in front of you. It is swimming in your direction. The modified fierce horse had stopped. The car's body with thick steel plates on both sides had many concave marks. It was very shocking. When the mutated demon fish started to move on the other side of the car, it vaguely felt that someone was shot into the water. It flapped its wings and swam quickly in the direction of Kurumi. The drenched Kurumi appeared to be in a sorry state. The water depth had only just reached her waist and abdomen. From the outside of the grey shirt, one could faintly see the tempting black underwear inside. However, it was a pity that the mutated demonic fish did not know what it meant to be tender to the fairer sex. Besides, no matter how beautiful Kurumi was, in its eyes, she did not have the beauty of those fat mother bat rays. Right now, it only wanted to eat the lovely person not far away and taste what it tasted like. Last night, the coarse fish filled with the smell of dead bodies was still fresh in its memory. What? Do you have taste buds? What can I do if it thinks it's delicious? You can ask for it yourself. Perhaps it can also recommend some recipes to you and order some traditional recipe as a broken bar. Her left hand gripped the front end of the sniper rifle, but her right hand was trembling. The pain was getting more and more intense. The attack just now was probably numb. Now that it was gone, the pain from her nerves was dominating her entire right arm. She had experienced a lot of things. The injuries she had suffered were heavier than this. It was not clear how many times it had been. Kurumi did not have this bit of pain at all. She would not even frown. However, due to the instinctive reaction, her fingers could barely pull the trigger. Looking out from the window, Sayatakagi's entire body was cold. The 6-meter-wide mutated demonic fish and Kurumi's thin and small body formed a sharp contrast. She thoroughly believed that the demonic fish could tear Kurumi to pieces in one move. Kota, what are you doing? Fat otaku, hurry up and shoot at the fish. Looking at Kotahirano, who was still lying in the carriage, looking for something, Sayatakagi was so angry that she couldn't fight. Yeah, broken bar, I can't find my glasses. Looking at the female glasses handed over by the goddess in his heart, Kotahirano was a little confused. Hurry up, I'll lend you my glasses first. Remember to return them to me when you're done. What are you still standing there for? Shoot the devilfish for me. Hey. Yes. Under the might of the goddess, Kotahirano naturally resisted, holding the glasses and wearing them on the bridge of the nose. The frames on both sides were propped up high, making it look hilarious. When he touched the gun on his seat, he hurriedly leaned against the skylight and began to search for the mutated devilfish. The glasses of Sayatakagi were still not too deep, and even if Kotahirano put it on, it still felt that the world was vague. But now was not the time to care about it. Kurumi had already started a fire with the mutated demonic fish. The situation was still quite optimistic. It was one-sided and suppressed the demonic fish, making it not dare to come out. However, when the bullets in the magazine were all gone, a broken bar, it had just come out from the other side of the body when Kurumi locked onto it. In this deep river, its huge body could not be hidden at all. It had originally lived in the sea, and its gentle nature had already become like a tyrannical monster. 6 meters wide, the demonic fish with a weight of 4,000 grams was enough to dominate this area of water. Moreover, the current water level was almost the lowest every day. It was impossible to imagine what kind of power it would have when the tide rose at night. She held the gun with her left hand. She would force it in since she could not pull the trigger with her right hand. Then, she would push her arm back. Even so, the muzzle of the gun kept shaking. Even Kurumi, who was proficient in firearms, put in a lot of effort. Bang, bang, bang. The gunshots continued. Although the high-speed consecutive sniper rifle maintained a certain firepower suppression, its power naturally weakened. It was unable to kill a large-caliber sniper rifle in one shot. In contrast, it could provide you with more opportunities. It seemed to be a little angry, but it would be hit by the bullet as soon as it moved forward. Its huge body spun back and forth in the distance, rolling up the mud and sand at the bottom of the riverbed, making the water in the area extremely turbid. There was a faint mix of blood in it. Kurumi did not let down her guard. She narrowed his eyes and slowly moved towards the modified Hummer. However, she also observed the waters at all times. The bullets passed through the river and hit the mutated demonic fish. There was already a layer of resistance. Although it was not very big, it was better than nothing. However, it was firmly locked by its thick muscles. Kurumi believed that the shots just now did not hurt the root at all. It was only possible that a broken bar was it afraid of pain. Damn it. Humans turn into dead bodies and look completely brainless. Why did the fish become smart instead? Sure enough, these 100 reincarnation points are not easy to get. Kurumi's eyes became more and more serious. She kept staring at the muddy waters. Kurumi could not figure out the position of the mutated demonic fish, not to mention the top of the car. Looking at everything, she could not see the shadow of that thing. Although she knew that it was hiding there was a great possibility that shooting would waste bullets. Boom. A boom, boom, boom. The mutated demonic fish emerged from the muddy waters and slammed its wings against the surface of the water. The huge thrust brought it extreme speed in an instant. Kurumi's bullets also arrived and ruthlessly vented on its head. Kotoharuno on the car's roof. Flames also emerged from the muzzle. Although it could only hit the body, the bullets were not wasted. However, the mutated demonic fish did not retreat at all this time. On the contrary, it rushed towards Kurumi again. Kurumi pulled away from the modified horse and tried to hit its head with every bullet. She could feel that the ammunition in the magazine was about to run out. She did not have any supplies at that time and only hoped that Kota could throw it accurately this time. On the roof of the carriage, Sekobuzujima was anxious. Although the mutated demonic fish was not far from her, she could only use a knife. Her strength in the water would be greatly reduced, so she did not go down. She was afraid that it would cause more trouble for Kurumi, but she saw an opportunity this time. The mutated demonic fish would probably pass by the car from the route. At that time, she would have broken bar. Kurumi stepped back to the other side of the car. She held the steel knife in front of her. Kurumi, observing the environment nearby, immediately knew what she wanted to do. After she fired the last bullet, she looked at the top of the car. The blood on the river's surface drifted along with the mutated demon fish. With her excellent eyesight, she could see its head. It was almost hit by the bullet and turned into a hornet's nest. But why was it still alive? The dead body would turn into a corpse if it exploded its head. This thing is tough to deal with. Just as it was about to pass by the car, Sekobuzujima turned the handle of the knife to the back and leapt high with the distance of only 2 steps. The bright silver blade went straight to the back of the mutated demon fish. A broken bar. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 44, Bloody Water. Zip. The tip of the knife was inserted into the texture of the mutated demonic fish. She skillfully avoided all kinds of obstacles and cut it down along the muscles with her exquisite skills. Under the light of the rising sun, Kotoharuno, on the roof of the car, could vaguely see the bright silver light of the knife. It was a bit dazzling. The water not far from the car began to muddy. The mutated demonic fish could feel the pain on its back. It tried to throw away Sekobuzujima's body. The blood and sand mixed. The small river was stirred up by the movements of the mutated demon fish. Water splashed on the car window from time to time. The pain brought about by the water was much stronger than when it hit the fish's body. Sekobuzujima was not feeling well either. The back of the mutated demon fish was slippery. It was challenging to stand on it, let alone the shaking of the fish. She could only hold the handle tightly while the wound on the surface of the mutated demon fish was getting bigger and bigger. Blood was oozing out of the injury and was washed away by the river water. Suddenly, Kurumi saw the long tail whip behind it aimed at Sekobuzujima on its back. If the attack were real, her spine would be broken easily. Although she wasn't as powerful as Kurumi when it came to sensing danger, if she couldn't feel the sound of the wind breaking behind her, then she would have wasted her time practicing the way of the sword since she was a child. There were only 2 choices left for her now. One was to give up on the steel knife, and her body would naturally be thrown into the river. It was very likely that the mutated demonic fish would suffer the consequences. But in contrast, this bit of damage was still within the acceptable range for a 6-meter-tall big guy. After that, it would be up to fate. The second was to pull out the knife and use the knife to hit the tail whip. It was possible to break its tail or be injured. However, from the various aspects of hitting the car's body, the possibility of injury was 99%. She would be shot into the river no matter what, but she still had her weapon. What should I do? Sekobuzujima decided in an instant. As a swordsman, she should not abandon the sword in her hand. The force between her hands instantly burst out. She did not hold back at all. Her body fell back unnaturally. This attack was not skillful. It was just an ordinary slash. The length of the blade was enough to make the blade and the tail whip of the mutated demon fish come into contact. At that moment, the Toki was pulled out from the muscles on the back of the mutated demon fish. Blood splashed out as it moved, and there was a hint of fierceness in it. Zip-lop. Even the timing unit-like seconds seemed to be lacking in this attack. The blade and tail whip collided, and sparks flew. Sekobuzujima was shot down into the water. On the roof of the car, Kotoharuno grabbed the opportunity to pull the trigger, and the bullets poured down on the wound on the back of the demon fish. Kurumi had already moved to the side of the car, but a steel knife did not block the wound on the mutated demonic fish. The blood flowed out of the wound as if it were free of charge. Especially for Kotoharuno, there were more than 10 bullets, and 1 or 2 of them pierced into the deep wound and exploded. The mutated demonic fish was in a mess. It did not know how to attack Sekobuzujima, not far away. Kurumi guessed that the fish was afraid to lose its mind. After all, that's how the brain is. How could it talk about recipes? Seko Buzujima stood in the water slowly. Her hands, which were holding the knife's handle, trembled slightly. Even though the whip did not touch all the force, it still made her mouth slightly numb. When she thought about how Kurumi had taken the attack head-on, her gaze became even more severe. The bright silver blade looked extremely eye-catching under the sunlight, but the scratches on it ruined the beauty of the whole, even though the clash was like a collision of golden stone. However, Seko Buzujima was sure that the tail whip of the mutated demonic fish also had wounds. The feeling of cutting on the blade's tip was not wrong. The water was getting more turbid, and no one knew what it was trying to do. Kurumi had changed her clip, and the gun was moving along with the black shadow in the muddy water. As long as it dared to come out, Kurumi would blow its head up. Even if she could not get the reward by using a hot weapon, she had to kill this disgusting thing first. Seko Buzujima slowly stepped back. She wanted to stay away from the muddy water. It was too dangerous here. It would be a joke if she were not attacked. Boom. As soon as the mutated demonic fish appeared, it was suppressed by the firepower from Kurumi and Kotoharano. Each of their marksmanship was more tricky than the other. Kotoharano focused on shooting at its head while Kurumi fancied its wound. A sniper rifle, even if it fired continuously, its power was not comparable to the ordinary rifle in Kotoharano's hands. In Kurumi's hand, almost every bullet was shot into the wound, causing the wound on the back of the mutated demon fish to expand again, and there were signs that it was going to pierce through. Although its movement was blocked and the water was filled with blood, it was more vicious. The blood-red color in the only eye was almost solid. It did not attack when it was about to swim to Seko Buzujima. It did not attack. Instead, it moved its clumsy body, turned around, and hit Seko Buzujima with its tail whip. Perhaps this method of attack was the most beneficial to it. After the mutation, the tail, like a whip, became more challenging, and the barbs on the tail made it successful. There was too much resistance in the water, and there was no time to dodge. Seko Buzujima could only defend passively. Like the previous confrontation, she was ready to use her Toki to clash with it. There was no doubt that Seko Buzujima was brought to the other side by the strong force again, except for the slight soreness in her arms. This time, she used borrowing strength to stall the mutated demon fish in the water to buy time for Kurumi and the others. There should be a limit to how powerful she was, right? With so many bullets, it would be difficult for her to survive. Bang. Another magazine was emptied. She casually picked up the magazine by the skylight and filled it. When she stopped, white smoke came out of the muzzle. It was a little too hot. Without paying any attention to the sorrowful expression on her face, she pulled up the bolt and continued to fire. Meanwhile, Komuro Takashi and the others in the carriage were busy reloadings. They didn't know how to use guns, so how could they fight the mutated demonic fish in the water? They probably couldn't even last one round, so they had to be a logistics team, protecting the two above them and being able to pour fire continuously. Bang! The last gunshot echoed across the river. The water in the middle of the river had turned red. The smell of blood was too strong. Kurumi could not help but twitch her nose. The mutated demonic fish was not moving, but it could not make Kurumi lower her guard. The fish was a creature with strong vitality. Its internal organs had been removed, and it could still jump a few times. The small fish swam happily in the blood and could not be dragged on. Seko, get in the car. A broken bar. Chapter 45, The Bait. Whoosh. The small fish swimming in the blood water seemed excited as they weaved about chaotically. Their speed was more than twice as fast as usual. The blood entered the fish's body, and an invisible gene mutation occurred. A pair of fish eyes began to turn red. The teeth on the lower jaw were growing crazily, and even the dorsal fin was changing, causing one's scalp to go numb. To witness a scene like a species evolving in a short period was indeed a bit shocking. There's a broken bar. Although Kotoharano couldn't see clearly, he could still sense the change. His expression was a little stunned. This is even more abnormal than those dead bodies. Humans can at most increase in all aspects a broken bar. This thing has even changed its appearance and size. This is unscientific. How can the blood of the devilfish have such high energy to support the transformation of fish? Teacher Shizuka, get ready to drive. We will leave immediately. Shizuka Marikawa immediately started the engine after hearing what Kurumi said. Seko Buzujima grabbed Kurumi's arm and stepped on the side of the car. The old driver in the driver's seat immediately stepped on the accelerator and rushed to the shore. The fish did not chase each other in the blood water not far away. Instead, they swam towards the direction of the modified horse. What are they doing? The big one can't even handle this car. Do they want to test their teeth? Kurumi glanced at him. I don't know if they want to test their teeth, but I know that it will be easy for them to bite through the tires. Komuro continued to fill in the ammunition. As soon as he heard this, Komuro in the carriage saw an empty magazine flying from the window and accurately hit his face. Oh! After being hit, he couldn't help but let out a muffled groan. Then, he He hurriedly caught the magazine and pressed down the bullets one by one. After all, he was still very clear about what was light and what was heavy. Kakadash! The bolt was hung up again. The corner of his eyes swept across the blood that had no movement, and he began to shoot at the lively fish swimming in the river. Bang 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 bang. Kotoharano missed 2 shots. It was unreasonable for this to happen to him. Didn't he see that he was shocked? That group of fish seemed to have intelligence. When you shot, it knew to speed up its tail and flee. Bang! Another bullet from the sniper rifle hit the mutant fish hard. It hit the fish from the head, passed through the tail, and went straight to the riverbed. There was only a burst of blood in the river, but the surrounding group of fish quickly ate it. The broken bar seemed to have grown a little stronger. Kurumi, who was lying on the car's roof, held her breath and focused. Every bullet could explode 1 or 2 mutant fish. Kotoharano, next to her, quickly found its state and began to hunt the fish officially. Fortunately, there were only a few dozen fish in the river. When the two almost changed their magazines, they had already killed nearly all of them. Compared to the mutated devilfish just now, these things were indeed much easier to deal with. They never got within 5 meters of the car, leaving only balls of blood that exploded in the water. Soon, they were washed away by the water and no longer had any traces. Kotoharano sat on the roof of the car. Although he was very talented in shooting, it was still too exhausting for him to shoot at the fish in the water while the cars were moving back and forth. Moreover, the glasses were not his own. It was very blurry for him to see things, but it was not easy to ensure that every 3 bullets hit 2. This was already his long-term performance. Looking at Kurumi, who did not feel anything at all, it was the first time he lowered his head in the shooting field. A broken bar. Kurumi, do you think we killed the dead bodies yesterday? Sakobu Uzujima saw that the blood in the river was getting lighter and lighter, but her eyes became more and more serious. Blood flowed into the river, which led to a broken bar. Before Kurumi could open her mouth, Sayatakagi, who had popped her head out of the window, hurriedly gave her own opinion. It must be, since those dead bodies can infect humans through biting, then what exactly are they relying on? There is no doubt that it is body fluid. Their saliva must contain a large number of bacteria. When bitten, it will be transmitted to the wound of the person, causing rapid mutation. He subconsciously adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose. As a result, he did not feel anything. He could not help but cough awkwardly. Since saliva can have virus elements, then their blood is naturally the gathering place of the virus. It can even be said that the transmission of blood is even more terrifying. As for why some people quickly turned into dead bodies, some people only changed after a long time. They should be antibodies. People with strong physical fitness can last longer. And why are we not infected? It is because the skin blocked the invasion of the virus. But as long as we find the wound a broken bar, of course, it is useless a broken bar anyway. They will become dead bodies, unless a broken bar, unless someone cannot be infected and not mutate. When she heard the familiar bewitching line, Sayatakagi looked up at Kurumi and happened to meet the smiling wine-red eyes. Isn't this the same as Alice in Resident Evil? As for the Saruma broken bar, God knows what it is made of. Our broken bar. Kurumi listened to Sayatakagi's opinion and recalled the so-called serum in her mind. If there is someone in this world who is immune to infection, a broken bar, will the people who successfully make the serum welcome the evolution? If the infection of the dead body virus is so extensive, no one knows what the earth will become. Oh, no, maybe God can establish all kinds of arithmetic groups. I believe we can see the answer closest to the truth. It's almost time to cross the river. Ashizu Kamarikawa, who was in the driver's seat, reminded everyone. A broken bar. Boom. The powerful driving force of the modified fierce horse was fully unleashed. With so many people, it was not affected at all. It climbed up at a slant of more than 70 degrees. Even because the driving force was too strong, the horse's body flew up when it came ashore. Kotoharano looked back and forth with a telescope, checking if a dead body was around, but the early morning river was silent. Other than them, there seemed to be nothing else. A broken bar. The modified fierce horse did a free cleaning in the river, washing away all the blood left after hitting the dead body last night. However, when Komuro Takashi and the others walked out and saw the dents on both sides of the body of the car, they could not help but gasp. Such a thick steel plate had been smashed into such a state. Although there were signs of protrusions in the carriage, there was no shock from watching outside. Senior Tokisakis, be careful. He had just used a telescope to circle a group of flatlands and looked back at the river. In the end, he just happened to see the huge figure pouncing towards him again. The shadow shrouded Kurumi, who was standing beside the riverbank. A broken bar. Kurumi had always suspected that the mutated demonic fish was not dead. It was because it was seriously injured. Kurumi realized that it had circled back from the other side only when the car came ashore. A faint trace of blood on the surface of the river had finally exposed it. A broken bar. The mutated demonic fish that she thought was hiding very well had always been under Kurumi's eyes. It was already seriously injured. Why didn't it find a place to rest? Why did it have to do such a big thing? Kurumi, who originally thought she wouldn't get any reward, suddenly had a plan. Using herself as bait, she killed this severely injured mutated demonic fish. A broken bar. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon. Chapter 46, Ruins. According to her original personality, Kurumi would not take such a risk. Still, the situation was urgent, and there was not enough time, so so the mutated demonic fish could slip away at any time. If it were for the protagonist and her group, it might have taken a lot of effort, but in the end, they did not get any benefits. Her script was not written like this. This mutated demonic fish was already a strong bow crossbow, and there was no sufficient prey in the river that could quickly heal its injuries. With a fluke mind, it wanted to sneak attack prey that could make it eat a full meal, and the group of creatures that had beaten it half to death just now was the best choice. Although she didn't know if it had the intention to die if it failed, Kurumi didn't intend to let this mutated demonic fish return to the water alive and deliver the meat in front of the door. There's no reason not to eat it. The 6-meter-wide giant body suddenly slammed to the shore, wanting to kill it with its body size. The seemingly careless Kurumi knew that the fish had bitten the hook when it pounced over. A light flashed in her eyes, and her right leg that seemed to be pressing down inadvertently, suddenly burst out with a powerful force. Bang, bang. The enormous force instantly separated Kurumi from the shadow of the mutated demonic fish. The moist soil by the river bank directly collapsed. On the shore, Kurumi had reached a terrifying speed. Before it could smash down, Kurumi had already turned around. At the same time, her left hand clenched into a fist, waiting for the final blow to the mutated demonic fish. It could only allow it to swim back and forth in the water. Without the suppression of firearms, it was simply unimaginable. Now, the tables have turned. The huge figure had become the reason for its clumsiness on the shore. Its body directly smashed onto the shore. Unfortunately, it did not overwhelm any living creature. It was just a pity for the grass on the muddy ground. 4,000 kilograms of weight directly smashed a hole in the ground. The mutated demonic fish already felt that something was wrong. The head of the broken head had already begun to send signals to every part of its body, trying to return to the river quickly. Unfortunately, Kurumi did not give it this opportunity. Bang! The moment the mutated demonic fish was about to hit the ground, Kurumi had already begun to attack it. She ignored the collapsing soil and forced her relatively weak body to use the technique of collapse. The moment her left fist hit its head, all the energy in her body rushed to her left arm, causing some blue blood vessels to be seen on her originally white arm. Although no muscle lines were visible, no one would deny the enormous strength of this attack. It directly smashed into the damaged head of the mutated demonic fish. The instant the attack hit, there was no blood and brain matter. On the other hand, that huge airflow brought by the punch faintly blew away the bangs in front of Kurumi's forehead, revealing the shocking golden eyes inside. Ding. The reward for killing the boss has been calculated. Please check it yourself after completing all the main missions. The voice of the Lord God sounded in her mind without any emotion. Kurumi finally breathed a sigh of relief. Although she was very confident about the one-hit kill just now, there was still a risk. Now, she could finally prove that this mutated demonic fish that had caused her so much trouble was now completely dead. Empty. She exerted a bit of strength on her left arm and pulled it out of the sunken fish head. It was covered in an unnatural crimson color, contrasting sharply with her white right arm. The bloodstains on the black gold glove faintly revealed a fishy smell, causing Kurumi to wave her hand in disgust. The huge body of the mutated demonic fish lay motionless on the shore. Only the long tail whip dragged into the water, which shocked the people watching the modified Hummer. The mouth of Kota, who had been watching with a telescope, was wide open. He put down the telescope and rubbed his eyes hard. Looking again, Kurumi was still standing in front of the enormous body. The whole head was sunken in large parts. Blood kept falling on the ground. Kota pondered whether it was brain matter or not, and it was all punched into the stomach. He unnaturally rubbed his round head and shivered. After all, this monster was still alive after being shot so many times, but now Kurumi killed it with a single punch. He only saw the black shadow rushing towards the shore, and then Kurumi was like a grey lightning, turning back and smashing its head with a punch. The moment she punched, her whole body felt like it was floating. The airflow forced the two ponytails hanging in front of her chest to the back, which was the most shocking thing to Hima broken bar. Since when can humans rely on their physical bodies to attack? Komuro Takashi and the others gathered around the mutated devilfish corpse, clicking their tongues in wonder. Only Satakagi was seriously observing its entire body. However, the result was obvious. Although she had a genius mind, she did not have any precision instruments to support her, and she could not see anything. Of course, some people noticed the black gold glove on Kurumi's hands, but they thought it was an extremely ordinary glove used to prevent blood. Only some beautiful golden patterns were embroidered on the top. After all, Kurumi had displayed extraordinary strength from the beginning. Although a punch exploding its head was shocking, it was not unacceptable. On the other hand, Kurumi ran to the end of the whip and started to cut the steel knife that Seko Buzujima had asked for. Seko Buzujima's eyes lit up when she saw this. She knew how powerful that thing was. It would be even better than the steel knife if it could be made into a weapon. Unfortunately, Kurumi was interested in the barbs on the tail whip. The black gold glove took the blow, and the secondary black cotton created by the master god directly made scratches. Even the gold silk on it changed slightly, and the barbs on the tail whip were not damaged at all. This was a good thing. Even if it could not be used now, it was still a big asset for Kurumi. In some magical world, a broken bar, a kind of people began to divide up the firearms found from the southern house. As for whether they could master it or not, a broken bar in any case, holding it in their hands was very safe. Miyamoto looked at the sharp knife with the tip of the spear. The light reflected from the edge of the knife made her sweat a little. It was the first time she had used this kind of thing. Komuro Takashi and Kota Harino took their guns and ran to the street. After careful observation, they found that there was no dead body. There was not even a car. The city only stopped running for a day, and the garbage on the street was blown around by the wind from time to time. He gave a signal to the people below and asked them to come up. Shizuka Marikawa sat in the driver's seat. Seeing such a steep slope, she was a little afraid. But when she stepped on the accelerator, the power of this modified fierce horse did not disappoint her. Kurumi also followed Sayatakagi and the others to the street. Ding. Main mission completed. A reward has been issued. Please check it yourself. Ding. A main mission 5 has been activated. Please check it yourself. With a thought, a virtual interface appeared in front of her eyes. Main mission 5. Go to the ruins of the Sayatakagi house and search for the reason. Success, 300 points. Failure, deduct all points. Kurumi narrowed her eyes and looked at Sayatakagi, who looked at her with a telescope not far away. She whispered to himself, ruins a broken bar. A broken bar. Become a patron to read chapters ahead of public release and support me. 30 chapters ahead are available on Patreon.